I actually didn't really care too much about the bikini category at all. I only really developed an interest because my partner was involved. I thought it was the most boring category of all time. I used to be, I was a big bodybuilding fan, and I'm like, I go to shows, like, oh, bikini's on. When's the bodybuilding?
Yeah.
But then my partner competed because she asked me to prep. I was like, all right, I need to take this seriously. I created the competitiveness within myself to learn more about the category because I was invested in her journey. And then because I started learning about it, I'm like, oh, it's actually not as simple as I thought it was. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly because I'm an all-in type of person. And I thought, all right, what is the goal that I want to achieve? I'm like, all right, I need to be Australia's best bikini coach. And I think that naturally, if the goal is to care and to provide value, the business is going to come.
How does that make you feel?
Emotional. I think, yeah, I definitely, I show up.
You do, bro.
You know, I show up and I give everything that I have. You're trying to get me here. That's it's impactful because I say what I truly feel. You know, she's a superstar. Words for me aren't just words.
I can
You know,
see
they have
that.
meaning.
I can see that, bro. I can see that. Don't you worry.
So I believe in everything that I say. Like, I write it because I mean it.
Please don't tell me your intensity is 10 out of 10. Mindset coaches are failed psychologists. Winning without winning is everything. If you haven't won a show, you probably need discipline. No one can be 100% all of the time. He doesn't plan for deloads. He's the size of your success is the size of your desire. He can't have read so many books. You learn from people doing better than you. Please help me welcome. You need to be brutally honest with yourself and that your effort may suck. Team Destroy himself, the man himself, Troy Thornton.
Thank you. That was actually really impressive. I like all that.
Oh, thank you so much. Well,
That was good. It's nice to hear some of the stuff back at you. I'm like, oh, that's it sticks. I like it.
yeah, well, we are going back in time. So, firstly, how are you?
I'm really good. It's comp season here in Australia, so I'm back in Melbourne at the moment.
Yep.
Normally I'm overseas in Dubai. So for the IFB comps coming up and for the FMG October show on the 19th as well. So I'll be here for that.
Oh, I have a question, so I'll bring that question forward. I know that you live in Dubai. Are you a Melbourne boy?
Yes. So born and raised in Melbourne.
Whereabouts?
In the western suburbs. Do you know much about Melbourne?
Only that we don't get on because I'm from Sydney.
Don't go on?
We don't get on.
Yeah.
But
Through the old Sydney and Melbourne battles.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So whereabouts?
So in the west, I actually grew up in a suburb called St Albans, which is about 25-30 minutes from the CBD.
Yep.
So I suppose let's call it on the lower income sort of suburbs.
Yep.
So I grew up with humble beginnings.
Yeah, of course. My sister lives in Northcote, Thornbury. I like going to Melbourne and I like staying at South Yarra. I tend to like South Yarra for some reason. Don't ask me why. I do. I actually really like Melbourne. Yeah, I find. Who do you follow the AFL?
Not so much these days. I can't lie about it. I used to be an AFL fan.
Yeah, who
I'm
were you?
old school Kangaroo supporter.
Kangaroos. Okay.
But that honestly ended a while ago. Not just because they suck, but I just lost the passion for football. And I'm a big fan of MMA, so I like watching UFC. That's my main sport.
Who's your favorite?
Favorite fighter?
Yeah.
The old school favorite, John Jones, is probably my favorite,
Oh,
just because he's just he's essentially undefeated and he's a dominant champion. And normally you like to see champions lose.
Yes.
That's my thing. I like to see them get challenged, but for him, he's got probably one more fight, and I like to see him win.
Yeah, he's quite amazing. I think to let you know, Muscle Talks, myself, this podcast, if I said to you, who do I idolize in relation to creating this brand and growing it, is actually Dana White. I think as a businessman and a person of building brand, I really like his way of sticking to a concept that, one, he doesn't muzzle his fighters, which is wonderful. He doesn't comply with the media, and excuse me, and having staff, sponsors. I mean, the whole thing means a lot to him to support this one brand, which is called the UFC, and the model is incredible. So, in business at the moment, I think he's the pinnacle of all businesses for me at the moment. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of Dana White. I think what he's done is amazing, and he just has this complete certainty about everything that he does, and he is about freedom of speech. Obviously, he's a big fan of Trump, with Trump being good friends with him.
Yes,
but
of course.
yeah, I like the fact that he's loyal. I like the fact that he says what he believes. He's not always right, but he stands behind his word. And for me, I resonate with that as well.
Well, seeing that we've discovered a little bit about you, the last question I'm going to ask, because it was part of down the line a question. Tell us why Dubai, and tell us pros and cons in both. Melbourne pros and cons and Dubai pros and cons.
Okay, so I would say number one reason for Dubai, for anyone that's listening and curious, is there's no tax over there.
There's what?
Right? So there's no tax over there.
Okay.
So in Australia, you're obviously, if you're in the high income bracket, you're getting 46%.
Yes.
And that's not including your GST. So it's not the best. Over there, you're going to get looked after. So there's a lot of requirements that, if anyone's interested in learning more about that, you can send me a DM and I'll talk to you about it.
Yep.
But outside of that, the service over there is spectacular. So the living standard's amazing. It's a very safe country. So you can walk the street and know that you're not going to get robbed. And I got told it was a very, very safe city and a safe country. And I didn't really understand what that meant, because you grew up in Melbourne. Sydney's probably very much the same, where you probably shouldn't walk the street at night if you're intoxicated, that type of stuff. But in Dubai, it's incredibly safe. I remember when I originally moved there, June 2022, and it was probably 2 or 3 weeks in. And I was like, I just want to go for a walk. And it was really hot. It's Dubai summer then. And I was going down the elevator, and there was an old lady that entered the elevator, and she decked out in iced out jewelry. She's got like crazy big diamonds. I'm talking a couple of carats. She's got like Cartier bracelets and just a nice diamond watch, all blinged out. I didn't want to look at her too much, but I could just see. And I just thought, where's she going? Like, she's dressed up and she's by herself going down the elevator. And then I thought, surely she's not going for a walk. And then I'm going for a walk. She goes for a walk, and she goes her a separate way. And I think, wow, that's the first time that I've obviously witnessed how safe this is. This lady was probably in her 70s, decked out in jewelry, going for a walk at nighttime. It was about 9 o'clock, I think, 8 or 9 o'clock. And I just thought, wow, the fact that she feels that safe to be able to do that, this is what I've heard about. So that's something that was really attractive as well. The restaurants are amazing, just the infrastructure. The fact that they have no tax there really blew my mind. And I kind of didn't understand what was going on, because the infrastructure is very good, the roads, the technology, they all respect their leader. So there's a level of respect there that they have for their leader, which is amazing. And it sets the standard. You know, they say the fish rots at the head.
Yes,
and
of course.
The people there are incredibly respectful and grateful for their leader. And it just opened my eyes. So I think Dubai it's a growing city. They want to bring more people in. They want to look after people. The fact that there's no tax there, there's 5% VAT, which is like a GST. It's a little bit different. So that's quite interesting. And it just opened my eyes up to Western society in terms of what we're getting, essentially what we're governed by, the rules and regulations that we have, not just in Australia, but in just Western society in general.
Yep.
The tax system, I think, is ridiculous. And when you go to countries that don't have tax and you look at the infrastructure and what the possibilities are, it opens your eyes up. Melbourne, obviously the negatives, the weather is not the best. I would say the weather in Dubai in summer is excruciating hot. It's like they've got AC everywhere.
Yes.
But that's probably a negative in Dubai, is the need for AC in, when it gets really hot. The lack of family and friends.
Yeah.
So, when you move to a different city or a country, to develop a meaningful connection, it takes time. and not everyone's going to have great intentions. Not everyone's going to be a friend. That doesn't mean it's not possible, but I would say that's the downside versus Melbourne. Melbourne's home, family, friends, and a little bit different. But I think Australia overall is a good country. Melbourne is a good city. I think obviously Sydney is a good city as well. I think we're very lucky to be in Australia, but the tax is what got me thinking I need to move. And obviously going through the Melbourne lockdown as well, that was really the first thing that got me thinking about, hold on, I'm paying all this tax. What am I doing here? Right. And then I needed to look at other options because I thought, what happens if there's another lockdown? And obviously there was a few, but after that period, I'm like, I need to find a solution. And that's what led me to Dubai.
Hey guys, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed, who is following us on all platforms, but especially here on YouTube. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, please, if you could do us a big favor, which helps us reach more people, get better, bigger, greater. We've already had some great guests anyway. Everyone's been a treat. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you're notified every week a new podcast that is launched. And I just want to say a big thank you. But again, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and enjoy watching Muscle Talks podcasts.
I've moved some questions over because I want to keep this topic going. But this podcast, which is called Muscle Talks Podcast, isn't just about bodybuilding. It is about bodybuilding. But I don't have no bros. Every person I talk to is a stranger. And what I try to achieve here is, who are we as bodybuilders, or who are we as coaches, and why do we love this sport? So if we all spoke about chicken and rice, it'd be a very boring fucking podcast. So these kind of information, I think it's great to have a podcast that delves into a sport we are about, but we know inside that sport, we turn up to the gym for many reasons. Some people are teachers, doctors, or now they are. Before it was basically people from your western suburbs. We were just gym bros going to a gym. And so if you don't mind, I want to continue this little bit of conversation before we get into the bit that you mentioned. How much weight should you put on after a contest? Is it 522 kilos too much? We'll get to that one in a second. But I noticed on your bio you had entrepreneur. Now, that's a big call, and I'll tell you why it's a big call. Not by you. I'm saying it's a big call because it's an aspiration we all want to achieve. I mean, and I think when I now read entrepreneur, I mean, firstly, looking at your backdrop, which is your books, the way you speak, you also mentioned grateful, and also the fact that you're trying to find solutions, the fact you spoke about taxes, and the fact that I'm assuming picking Dubai and the lack of family and friends there can be also quite scary, quite overwhelming. How did you find achieving that, believing in yourself? Because to go there, it ain't a holiday. It takes a certain character to know you're going to get pulled back, and you've got to have certain resilience to keep going. How did you do that?
Thank you. That's really nice. I think that came from probably firstly working on myself. So I see a clinical psychologist. I've been seeing a psych now. I do regular sessions. So if not weekly.
So do I, by the way. Go ahead. So do I.
I've heard that, and I like that. I think that more people need to, because there's always room for expansion. And that's something that we can probably talk about in a moment.
Yeah.
But through that process of, I suppose, working on my self-esteem and developing myself, I created a mindset where I no longer felt lonely. And through that process, I could move overseas. Let's say 5 years ago, before even seeing a clinical psych, would it be possible for me to be able to move overseas by myself? Absolutely not. There's absolutely no chance. I relied on family or friends, probably more so friends than family. And I don't think that was possible at the time. But moving forward, because I put the work in, I was able to do that comfortably. And not only to do that, but also to really love it and enjoy it. And to, when I became my own best friend through that process, I could, be alone and really enjoy my me time. And it wasn't a concern for me. So it wasn't necessarily that I moved there and I missed people, and that was the focus. I was grateful to be there, and there was so much time for me to, to explore Dubai, explore new country and to, you know, to find new connections and to meet people, whether they're male or female.
Since, again, before we get it, I knew we'd segue into many things. What did you discover? I'll go first, but what did you discover when you saw a clinical psychologist? And I'll explain what I discovered. Firstly, very early in the piece, I think the fear is, I think you can agree, anybody that walks to go see a clinical psychologist and before they open their door, you think you failed. The first thing you're thinking to yourself when you walk in that door, not because you failed, meaning, why do I need help? You're thinking to yourself, I should be able to do this on my own. I don't need help. But one thing I found very early in the piece was that clinical psychologist is a personal trainer for your brain. So if we've got personal trainers for our physique and our physique becomes overweight, becomes lazy, doesn't know repetition, can't be disciplined, can't exceed certain pushes, and also the laziness of wanting to turn up to the gym and those winter nights. So that's the physical side. So what I found with a psychologist was similar. My brain I must be getting older, lazier, and more content, and that's dangerous. What do you think? What was it that you found when you went to see a psychologist to share?
I think I was really focused on the solution. So I knew that, let's say, the way that I felt about myself and even my decision making and behavior needed to improve. So realizing that I was impacting not only myself but others around me, and I was like, something needs to change. Like I have what I believed at the time was little control or self-control, and I was probably I was exhibiting damaging behavior towards myself and other people. So the relationships that I had, I was damaging, and it wasn't flourishing, and I just wasn't a happy person. So if you wake up every day and you're relying on, let's say, friends, and you feel lonely and all these other things, for me, that was probably the catalyst to say, hey, look, I need to try something. And I had that same opinion where I did think that probably a little bit egotistical, thinking like, what can I do?
Yeah.
Right. I think
exactly. I like that. Yes.
Yeah. I definitely, and I would say like ego is the enemy, right? And I think everyone has an ego to a degree, and I mean I still do as well.
Of course.
But it was I suppose having that somewhat level of humility to go, I need to try something different. I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to commit to the process and believe that it can work. And I can tell you, I didn't enjoy my first 5, 10, maybe even 20 sessions.
Oh yeah.
You know, I didn't what I thought to myself that this is in slow motion. Like, why are we operating at a speed that's elementary? And
yes,
I'm like, I'm very frustrated, but I've got to trust the process. This is what I'm here for. So, and I think that's probably very relatable to some, you know, it's obviously to you as well.
Yeah,
and even in the fitness realm, like if someone's really overweight and they've just started the gym, they want to see results in a week. It's probably not going to happen.
That's hilarious.
And
yes, good analogy.
And with this, very much the same. Like I was frustrated after a few sessions. I'm like, why is this not happening now? Like obviously putting the years, the months and years into it, I can see and reflecting, okay, I see it now. You can't expect to get results in the gym in a week in you know, significant results in 3 months. You can get decent result in 3 months, but nothing significant. You're not going to achieve your dream physique in 3 months. No. You're not going to, you know, achieve your dream mindset and all of a sudden everything's fixed to a degree where you're satisfied in 3 months either. You've got to put the work in. And that's something that I realized over time. But yeah, it was tough in the beginning because I definitely felt like everything was in slow motion. And my ego, it took a little while for my ego just to soften up and to completely trust the process. I believed in the process. I wanted to believe, but I needed to experience it and to see a result. And once I started seeing results, I was like, oh, okay, this is really working, but I've got a long way to go. And that's really interesting when me personally, I was maybe even 20 sessions in, right? And I was thinking, oh, I'm starting to see progress, but I actually have a long way to go. This is going to take a lot longer than I thought. So,
I found what I enjoyed the most from it was the non-biased opinion, and that when I did something right, she told me I did something right, which I enjoyed, because it was not done like your parents, you know, you tell them at 28 you want to take up tennis and your mum goes, I'll just give it a go, you never know. Where the psychologist will tell you, you probably missed your opportunity, mate. At 28, maybe take up shot put. Go and put a bit of weight on and hit the shot put. You know? So, and then I'm sorry about my voice, but it's there. I sound like Jordan Peterson, by the way. We're going to pretend I'm Jordan Peterson. And
that's pretty good. If you sound like JP, that's halfway there.
Well,
we're good.
We saw you've got a highlight of him up there, so we're going to talk about that. I got you covered, mate. Honestly, writing you up, I'm just as nervous as your competitors, because I've had them on and they've mentioned your name and they tremble, which is so funny. But they love you to death. They love you to death. So I think, like I said to you, I think the most important part is having a non-biased opinion in a conversation. I don't think family and friends can be non-biased when they care about you, love you. Sometimes they can give you advice that isn't necessarily going to help you. In relation to maybe going to Dubai, maybe your family would love you to stay. Don't go, Troy. You could do it here as well, where your psychologist might say, you know what, Troy, you won't find out if you don't go. And you said, that's correct. I won't find out if I don't go. So you're living proof of just, that journey of which you put at the top there, entrepreneurship. But let me start with mindset highlights. That's what you've got. You've got mindset highlights. You wrote here, take every opportunity to educate yourself. Learn from people who are doing better than you. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I think that anyone that has a goal, let's actually I'll actually start with something different.
Yep.
Every master was once a beginner.
Correct.
Right? So having that approach of humility where you can assume someone is going to give you something that you don't know, especially if you're entering into a field that you don't know much about, whether it's training, nutrition, if it's coaching or other areas. So there's always someone that has a level of experience. There's always someone that you can learn from. So if you're taking that approach, you're probably going to learn a lot from that person.
Yep.
And for me personally, let's say with coaching, I did happen to learn a lot from different people in terms of what their approach was from a coaching perspective, what their approach was from a marketing perspective. Mm-hmm. And you can also learn from the mistakes of others and say, oh, hold on a second, that probably wasn't the best idea. Mm. And there's a lot of information now, both positive and negative. It's just about analyzing what's out there and then taking every bit that you can that's going to benefit you and implement it and try new things out. So I think education is something that is completely underrated. And sometimes you might educate yourself on things that probably aren't the best, but that's important for you to decipher and to come up with, okay, this stuff I agree with, this stuff that I don't. And there's always room for expansion. So you might believe in a certain set of theories now in 2024, and that opinion might change 2025, 2026, etc. You might be left-leaning politically now, then all of a sudden you're right-leaning politically. Things can change. Probably not your favorite football team. That might be the one thing that's never going to move. Yep. But outside of that, I always think that there's room for expansion.
How old are you, Troy?
36.
You're very wise for your age, I must say. Oh God, I'm 55 and I'm listening to you, and I'm quite impressed. And it's not that you need to impress me. I don't need to be impressed. I'm just saying, I'm just listening to you, and I think to myself, shit, and he's still got a long way to go, and he's already putting this together. It's pretty amazing, Troy, I must say. The size of your success is measured by the strength of your desire.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that
that's
one.
pretty good. Do you want to elaborate?
I mean, and that's probably that quote was inspired by a book that I really like. It's probably a little bit complex for if you're a beginner reader. I wouldn't recommend it for those that are listening, because it's probably not your gateway to reading books. But if you are an avid reader, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, one of the steps for success is all achievement stems from a burning desire. So if you have that burning desire to succeed, whatever the goal is, and you put your heart and soul into it, it's going to be inevitable. So for me, it's creating that desire and that want and need for success, and then backing it up with action. It doesn't mean that you're going to get everything perfect, because a lot of the time you don't need perfect. And a lot of the time, perfection equals paralysis. Like, you know, like you get that
analysis to paralysis.
Yes, there's the level of, I won't do this because it's not perfect. And I've been in that position before. A lot of the time, people just need to take action. So for me, everything does stem from that. And when I actually think and reflect about anything that I've ever done that I'm really proud of, and let's say going back to clinical psychology work, for me, the desire was to change. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I just knew that I needed to for myself and for people around me, because I did some blunders, and I was like, I need to find a solution. I believe that the solution's available. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm going to do it. And it was the same thing with coaching. When I first got into coaching, I was doing it part-time. It was just kind of fun. And I wasn't charging anyone at the time. I was just, you know, working with a few athletes that I just really enjoyed. And then a lot of them pushed me into it. But I didn't necessarily have this moment where I was like, I want to be a full-time coach, because I was just happy doing it part-time. It was fun. Like I said, I was doing it for free just to help out certain competitors. And
if you don't mind me asking, I thought I'd ask, what were you doing if you were doing that for free part-time? What was your income?
So I was working at the time at the Arnold Australia. So when they had the Arnold Classic, which was the Arnold Classic Expo with Tony Doherty ran, which was it was such a cool job.
Yeah, 2019, wasn't it?
Yeah, they did a few, and then COVID was the 2020 was supposed to be the last expo. I wasn't working for Tony then because I moved on, but that was supposed to be his last. I wouldn't say the last one, because essentially they're going to keep going, but there was a few issues there, obviously with COVID, big problems with the mech. It's probably not a conversation that I'll go down because it's Tony's business, but it was. Think of it like this: when the pandemic comes and you're paid for a spot at the convention center, what's going to happen to that contract? You're pretty much screwed.
Oh,
you know. And
I think he lost a lot in that situation. Not that I've had Tony on, but I've heard him on other podcasts. But what's funny is I'm 55. At 49, I decided I wanted to compete. So I was going to compete at the Arnold, but I got a condition that pops up every blue moon. I don't know why. I get colitis, and I got colitis, and what it did, it ripped my appetite out of me. And because I was bleeding, I was depleting too quickly, so I was losing energy, and I was still trying. I'm tenacious. I'm like, fuck, you got no idea what I put myself through. But I did go to the show, though. I did go to the Sydney show and watch it. It was quite an amazing show, by the way, 2019. But yes.
Yeah, no, the Arnolds back then were so fun to be a part of. I mean, yeah, I definitely think that they did a great job. Going back, what was the original question?
The original question is, I asked you, you said you were doing it for free, you were doing it part-time, and I asked, well, what was your main crust? What were you doing? But you mentioned Arnold's, you're helping out, you're working there. You go on.
Yeah, so I was just doing a part-time for that, and then I suppose there was an opportunity in the market where there was a need for a coach to stand out, because at the time I don't believe that the coaches were doing a great job, but I didn't have a goal with it. There was no desire. I was just like, I'm happy to doing what I'm doing. But once I thought about it and I thought, okay, you know what? I looked at it and assessed it. A lot of people were encouraging me, and I thought, now's the time. Yeah, I'm going to commit to this, because there was demand, and I was saying no to a lot of ladies that wanted to join the team to be coached. And they're like, I'll pay you. Like, I don't have pricing. I don't charge anyone. I'm not like, this isn't a business for me. Yep. So, but once I decided, I'm like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly, because I'm an all-in type of person. And I thought, all right, what is the goal that I want to achieve? I'm like, all right, I need to be Australia's best bikini coach. If I'm going to do it, that's going to be the goal. And then once I committed to that idea, I was like, all right, I'm all in. And that's when I was like, let's go. And then I turned the taps on, so to speak. And then I need to come up with the pricing structure. I need to come up with, what I'm going to provide these clients. I need to have a point of difference. And I came up with all that. And then I just took action from there. So I think that quote that you've mentioned, it really relates, because there was a clear goal that I had, and I had a clear vision, and a desire to succeed. And I thought, I want to make an impact, and I want to be the coach that people go to with the authority that makes the decisions that they can trust and go, wow, this guy's going to do a good job.
Well, from what I had and the people that I've spoken to, you seem to be doing that. So, hats off to you. Your next highlight quote was, you need to be brutally honest with yourself and understand that your effort may just suck. Why is it that all losers are full of excuses?
I would say that it's very true. I do think that people that happen to lose make excuses, and I've been in that position before. There's been times where I've been committed, where I've done really well, and there's been times where I've lacked commitment. And most of the time when there's been a lack of commitment, I've had excuses, right? We all do. And that's where I think being honest with yourself is really important. And, the best thing to do, to be honest with yourself, is to set clear goals, to have clear direction, and then to keep yourself accountable and going, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing to work towards these goals, whether it's fitness, whether it's career, whether it's family, friends, relationships, etc. I think that we can always have a clear goal. We just need to stay on that line. And if we get off the line, then, okay, we need to readjust. We need to get back on that line and go, okay, hold on. What I'm doing right now, all this behavior has got nothing to do with my goals. I need to get back on the line. And I've done that many times as well. And that's part of that self-reflection and having a clear goal and clear purpose. And you can do that. So I do think that when you lose, it's definitely easier to make excuses. But I think that if you put all your work in and you are all in committed and you do it wholeheartedly, even if you, let's call it fail, right? But that failure, the whole concept of failure is self-perception anyway. You're going to be proud of yourself and you're not going to have any excuses. And I think that's the main thing.
I have heard a lot of people speak about there's no real failure. It's just continued lessons, I guess. And it's a reflection on those lessons and come back a better self. So I think, I don't think there's really losing involved. I think we can, like I said, look at a situation and what did we learn from it to approach things a little bit better. That's what I feel losing can be. I don't think, I don't have a losing mindset. I think myself, I believe I'm not trying to portray optimism. It's just innate in me. Yes. Do I have ego? Yes. Do I have judgment? Do I do all the things? But the great thing is I can catch them out as well. Just as I can catch out losing, I can catch everything out and bring it to one center. So that's what I feel. But you've got another one here. In a world full of challenges, excuse me, cultivating an abundant mindset and positive attitude is number one. Self-doubt plus harsh judgment limits potential and saps energy. We need to break free, recognize that setbacks are an opportunity for growth and to build momentum.
That's hard. That says it all. That's hard to expand on that. I would say that the words that you choose to use have meaning. They can be low vibrating, they can be high vibrating. So actually, you know what, that got my attention. So let's say if I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about the concept of stress, right? And he was saying that right now he's feeling quite stressed because his business is growing and, he's got a lot of lead generation, and the time that he's putting into his business is, it's quite large and it's grown, and he's not sleeping. He's kind of exhausted. Right. And okay, we need to address this and talk about his exhaustion, which we did. And I'm very straight with people as well. So we had a good conversation around, energy management and what he can do to improve that type of thing and make sure he's filling his cup, because that's important, right? Otherwise you're going to burn out. And he's probably in that phase where he's burning out. But I just said to him, the way that you're talking is very negative, brother. I said, you keep using the word stress and you keep using these things that I suppose express how you're feeling, but I don't think in the appropriate way. Because everything that you're stressed about right now, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, you were dreaming to be in this position. You wanted to have these leads. You wanted to be scaling your business. You wanted to be in this position financially. You're there now, but now you're exhausted. Once you have that opportunity, that's what it is. I said, you need to grab it and run with it. This is everything that you've been asking for. So I just had a conversation with him about rewording some of the things that he's saying. I said, this is not stress, brother. I said, this is an opportunity right now. This is everything that you've ever wanted. This is a positive thing. Like, how is this negative? And we had to chat about that. And it was just talking about his perception of things and I suppose rewiring his internal dialogue, because there needs to be an element of gratefulness, because this is exactly the position that he wanted to be in. So I think that the words that you speak to yourself have meaning, and what you obviously speak out loud. So when you speak these words, you got to be very careful, because it can build negative momentum. Just as long as, I mean, having a mindful attitude and a grateful attitude is also going to build momentum. So, you know, when people say that they're feeling a certain way and really exaggerate and push that, that's not saying that you're not allowed to be expressive of emotion. It just means, why not challenge your thoughts and try to express your emotions in a positive way where you can take action and you can move forward, rather than be so restrictive and confined to a specific, let's say, stressful state, which he's in. It's like, this is everything you've ever wanted, brother. You know?
I was watching on YouTube, 7 Tonight. I don't watch telly, but 7 Tonight had a YouTube. Obviously, they go online, and they just had James Packer on, and they spoke about his mental health woes, right, and his journey as an entrepreneur. I think he's worth about $8 billion. I'm not too sure how much he's worth, and he actually said something about, who is he to complain about mental health? This little rich boy, he's saying, right? But what he said was, you could be a billionaire and get cancer, so why can't you be a billionaire and have poor mental health, right? He was talking about that. But what I'm segueing to, he said, some of his best work, which I tend to agree, sometimes my best work is in manic. It's when I'm about to lose everything or it's just too much. It's like this middle ground I'm not good with. It's either got to be all nothing, like we're about to lose it to make it, or we're making it and we've got to hold on to it. Does that resonate with you in a sense? Not so much you, but your friends, kind of where he is right now. He's got to embrace the turmoil, because this is business. It's turmoil. It's problem solving.
Yeah, I do think a lot of people have that element. For me, I welcome it. I enjoy it, because if I've asked for something, if it's in my goals, it's in my affirmations, and if it's what I truly desire, like, this is what I want. So exactly what I said to my friend, and I can see how it's a challenge, and who doesn't want to welcome a challenge? This is what you've asked for.
Yes.
This is expansion. So I think, provided that the challenge, you're up for the challenge and it's not too extreme, then it's going to be a good thing. I do think that there are limits to challenges, and that's where people can go, wow, okay, this is too much. And I've yet to have that experience, but is it possible? Sure. I do think that everyone has a limit and a line, but it's just, I suppose, continuing to ensure that you're filling your cup. So not just having goals, let's say with business, but if your business goes to shit, right, but your fitness is going good because you're training in the gym, you might be doing boxing as a side mission, you might have hobbies, and you might have relationship and friendship goals that you're fulfilling, right? So if the career goes to shit, it's like, okay, hold on, I'm multidimensional, I've got other things that I've got going on, I'm actually grateful for these things. The business thing that right now is going to shit, right, that's the challenge. It's not as impactful because you're multidimensional. And I think that people that are one-dimensional, that are all in committed with their business, that don't have other things going for them, that's when it can be more impactful.
All right. I'm gonna nitpick a few things out of this, because I've really, you're switching on all my lights. I've got, like I said, I look like the CBD right now, coming in at night. 1, affirmations. Do you have rituals and habits in the morning? I mean,
Yes.
I do. What are your rituals and habits?
Yeah, so I've got a program on the laptop called Evernote, and I store all my goals and affirmations. So I have I got 19 on there.
Yep.
And I read that every morning.
Good,
I'm not going to lie. They're supposed to be read at night, but I don't often read it at night.
It's
Sometimes
okay.
I skip that.
It's okay.
So we do it in the morning. And I also have a few quotes that I resonate with, and some of them are from Dana White as well. And I go through that and I read it. And some of those quotes, just when I need a little bit of oomph throughout the day, I'll go back to the notes and I'll read some of them and go, wow, that resonates with me. So even what you've shared so far, that those type of quotes fire me up. And sometimes when I read a quote, you don't necessarily want to be fired up to a point where you're like, yes, this is like a stimulant. This is like caffeine, this is coffee. But to be operating from an inspired state, that's what I want to operate from. There's a difference from being motivated by something in the moment from the video and going, wow, that video was crazy. But to operate from an inspired state is what I want. And that's where the goals and affirmations come in, and there's certain quotes that resonate with me. So I go through that process where I read my goals. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm working towards. And like I said, having goals in different areas of, the life is very important. So like right now, for example, I train Muay Thai, and I have certain Muay Thai goals that I want in terms of technique, in terms of fitness, and to be able to do things athletically. So when I think about the Muay Thai goals, I not only read my affirmation, but I think about it visually. So I create a visual in my mind of what it's going to look like when I'm performing certain kicks, performing certain combinations, and I can see it in my mind, and that inspires me to take action. So I'm looking forward to my next session. A lot of the Muay Thai sessions are very challenging, by the way. They're a bastard to get through. But when I think about, oh, I can do one or two things. I can think about, wow, it's a bitch, it's a bastard, it's so challenging, it's hard. Or I can think about, hold on, this is the visual that I want. This is what I want to achieve. I can see myself doing it. I'm progressing. I'm getting there. And I rather focus on option 2, on the visual and progress to get there, rather than it's a bitch, it's a grind, it's so hard. And I think if people can separate the work from the vision and focus on vision, that's what drive you to success. And that's what works for me. So when I read these goals and affirmations, I always try to create a visual element as well to create that inspired state.
Hi, Yvonne here. I'm thrilled to be working with Steve from Muscle Talks. Please go to rockcreek.com.au and join in on the collaboration with Steve and use your Muscle Talks 10 discount code to buy any products that you'd like.
Were you, again, I started visualization at the age of, I think I started visualization maybe 17, 16, 17, 18. I can't remember exactly. It just came on me. I didn't know what it was back then. It was the late 80s. But are you a visualization person?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that it's important to know what you want. I think that's probably the most important thing, because what can you visualize if you don't know what you want? You need to know what you want with certainty. And I think visualization, going back to that desire, when I visualize my goals, if I can, it creates that burning desire. It builds momentum. You can't just go from this is what I want and just have and then have burning desire. It takes time to build up. That's why I think repetition is important, and the goal setting, the visualization element is important, because it builds that momentum.
And 2 more things I'll ask, and then multi-dimensional. Can you explain that, please?
So having more things going for you than just one thing only. So sometimes people are all in committed with business, which I've done in the past, and I wasn't a miserable person.
Right.
And this is something that I realized with seeing a psychologist. I said, like, I'm happy to grind and work all the time. That's what I was doing. Like, I wasn't going out on a Friday, Saturday night. I think that, cool, I'm somewhat successful in business, but I had nothing else going for me. Right. So I was absolutely one-dimensional, because that's all I was doing. I didn't have goals and aspirations in other areas. And I realized where I was lacking.
Bloody hell, I think that's me, but keep going.
And you know what? It's like, I think the
it's
whole idea of, it's hard, because it's like, there is an argument for work-life balance, and there is an argument for all in with work. But what matters most is the individual and how you're feeling. So if you're all in committed with work and you know wholeheartedly what you want, From my perspective, that's not an unhealthy thing if you're happy with yourself. So only you know that, you know, if you're happy with yourself, when you wake up in the morning, you're like, yes, I'm inspired, I feel great, I'm ready to work. And then some days you don't feel like you want to work, and you've got to be disciplined, right? That's understandable. You can't always be in a grateful mood and in an inspired state. It's just not reality. But I think that you've just got to listen to yourself and know what you want, and be willing to accept that there are other ways to do things. And that's what I needed to do with, you know, looking at other areas and setting new goals, and, you know, wanting to learn a new skill, like we discussed in Muay Thai. Like, doing that created something different in me, where I have something to look forward to that's outside of work. And you got to fill your cup in other areas. And for me, that is one area that I've been filling my cup on.
All right, then I'm going to ask you, tell me about this filling the cup. Explain filling the cup to me.
So filling the cup for me is about doing things for yourself.
Right.
So I think it's very easy to do things for other people. And being in a service-based business as a coach, it's like, sure, you're creating a business, sure, you're getting revenue, but a lot of time and effort is going into other people. So if I'm helping other people achieve their goals, right, but I'm goalless, am I filling my cup? No. You know, I'm not doing things for me. So an example of filling your cup could be getting a massage. An example of filling your cup could be seeing a clinical psychologist. It could be organizing your diet and having, you know, your meals ready to go. It could be having a personal trainer, or even working with the coach. I was doing none of these things. I was doing nothing for myself.
Yep.
So that was definitely a problem, and I certainly am guilty as charged with not filling the cup. So I completely understand. And now I do, and sometimes it's very easy for me, much like you, just to be completely work focused. And I go, hold on, I need to pull myself back and make sure that I'm, you know, doing other things that aren't just work related.
Yeah, I was telling Chris, and I'll add to the cup thing, because I think I don't know if this will add value to you or anyone, but what I found with filling a cup, if your cup is half full of love, you can't love another person till you fill your cup up, meaning it's got to overflow. And when a cup overflows, it spills onto a bench and then onto a floor. So what you do when you're overflowing in love is to go love someone, love something, bring a new cup under it. It's wasted on the bench, it's wasted on the floor. But when your cup isn't overflowing, you're good to no one. Give you another example, money. If your cup isn't overflowing with money, how can you be charitable? How can you be giving when you're empty? So go and find money. But if your cup overflows again and it's hitting the bench top, it's hitting the floor, grab another cup and help someone else make money. Let's just go make money. So what I'm saying is, it's a biblical term to fill thy cup over and fill others too. And the thing is, I was telling Chris, there's a sequential way with this. And I'll explain to you that, do you know it is endless cups that you can put under you? What's most important, that you don't put the wrong cups under there. What I'm trying to say to you is, let's say for me, use me as an example, it's only fair. I'm single, meaning I'm divorced. But when my cup fills over, I have a daughter and a son, and their cups will be filled. Once I help them fill those cups and we're spilling over, it's got to be family and friends. And when that spills over, it's got to be some strangers, and it's got to be some people that are struggling, because my cup, I don't want it to hit the bench top. I don't want it to fall on the floor. So what I'm saying is, it's an endless array of cups. But going back to the beginning, I'm useless for my children if I'm not firstly showing them, but also filling thy cup over as well. So hence, I understand what you mean by filling your cup. But I know once that cup is spilling over, that's the moment you really got the greatest opportunity to give all you can as well. Anyway, I hope that made sense.
That was 10 out of 10. That was beautiful. I really like that. I think that you are going to have impact on others when you're fulfilled.
Yes.
When you're operating from a place of joy,
yes.
gratefulness.
Yes.
energy is contagious. I believe that. So yeah, I couldn't have said that better. I'm gonna have to steal that myself. Thank you.
Go for it, man. Go for it. All right, let's get back to not being so serious. How much weight is too much weight? Should one put on after a contest? You said 5 to 10 kilos in 1 or 2 weeks is a bit extreme. Can you please elaborate to everyone listening?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the time ladies make, not even gender specific, but
Yes.
when working with bikini competitors, the idea of putting on 5 to 10 kilos of stage weight post contest, right? Not the best thing to do.
Yes.
You're going to, I would say it's borderline moving into an eating disorder.
Right.
It's not having that, you're not doing any, look, it's abuse to the body. Let's be real.
Yep.
It's just straight up abuse to the body. And it's unfortunate that people go down that road. And I think that there's a better way to do things. And I think also what's happened is there is this concept now of the recovery diet. So people are justifying laziness and saying, I need to do the recovery diet and gain all this weight post-contest mindlessly because of my hormones. But they'll say that and justify that without actually looking at blood work, without looking at other markers. There's also the idea of post-contest prep blues, which happens all the time. The likelihood of a competitor to have post-contest prep blues is going to go through the roof if you put on 10 kilos post-contest in 2 weeks.
100%.
It's probably not the best strategy. And I've seen it many times, and it's never ever a different, it's never a different outcome. It's always the same thing where ladies like, I really regret eating all that food. I don't feel great. I need to go back on a diet. No, like you've just come out of a contest. We can't go back into dieting. We need to build up your metabolism. This isn't so simple. So I think that the solution here is, you know, commit to a reverse dieting phase. Make sure you build up your metabolism to put yourself in the best possible position to have a healthy off season, to be as lean as you can. And then you can go back to, you know, enjoying meals with family and friends and, you know, and having a strategy around calorie management to make sure that you're not putting on all that weight, because you're going to be very upset, you know, when you know, in a month's time and go, wow, I could have done that better. You don't want to say to yourself, I could have done that better. When you're lean, you put all that hard work, 16, 20 weeks of dieting just to get to that position, just to blow it in 2 weeks. That makes no sense. And you got to, if you put on 10 kilos, that's at least another 12 weeks of dieting that you've got to implement to get that off. You just wasted 20 weeks.
Isn't it funny though? I mean, it's first and foremost, I've never been, I have done competitive body, but more so towards the summer days growing up, and also my wedding, turning 30, turning 40, turning 50. I've known I need 20 to 16 weeks out for my birthday or for the 1st of December. And the funniest thing is, once you get to the 1st of December, when you feel like, because you've got to put a date to know what your goal's going to be. But when I got to the 1st of December, I realized now I've got to hold on to it for 12 weeks, meaning because it's summer, I want to look good on the beach. And I think people are forgetting the admiration of not just the fact that you got on stage, and maybe you won, you didn't win, doesn't really matter. But why not also take what you achieved on stage and put it into everyday living? I mean, don't lose it, hold on to it, but maybe you're not going to be holding on as in a similar discipline. But yeah, if you can enjoy that sexy body, maybe, yes, you know, put on a kilo or two, smooth it out a little bit. Sometimes it even comes back better. Sometimes you go to yourself, Jesus, I look even better than I wish the comp was this week, because you're not stressed, because you're relaxed, your body does different things. So I think maybe if people are listening, maybe they should realize, yeah, you've made it to stage, but you haven't enjoyed it yet. Wait till you actually enjoy it in your own time, where you enjoy it with family and friends. You enjoy wearing a great dress with that kind of body, and the comments you will receive by people when you're out and they say, God, you look amazing and you're glowing. But I don't think they give themselves that chance, do they really?
No, I agree. I think that there's an opportunity to look good year round if you really want to.
Oh,
it just comes up with the choice.
100%.
And look, to be fair, a lot of ladies do look good anyway. It's just really perception.
They do.
You know, they really push it and think, oh, you know, You actually probably, most ladies look good 10 kilos plus stage weight, over stage weight. You know, that's not the issue. But it's like, if your goal is to be a competitor and the best competitor possible, perhaps that's not the best strategy.
Yes. No, I agree with you. No, I agree. All right. Then your next comment was on your post, so forgive me if anything. Take a week off training when one has their period, and do all women? My question is, so you're saying, I know the answer, you'll tell us the answer. Take a week off training when one has their period. And I'm asking you, do all women lose their periods when competing? I don't know. I'm just a guy, just asking.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So not all women lose their period when competing. I suppose it's different for everyone. And using performance enhancement isn't also an indicator that they will. Yeah. It's possible that they will keep their period. And a lot of ladies that I've worked with that have used performance enhancement actually have their period in peak week. And it's just like, damn, you know, it's something that it's a win-lose. It's like, it's great that you're healthy, because I said, like, having your period is a sign of health in my
of course. Opinion. Yeah, I'd like that.
So that's the upside, but there's also, we've got to manage the water now. We've got to figure that out. So some ladies will also be natural competitors and will completely lose their period. And some will keep their period. Everyone's different, depends on a few different factors, their stress, the amount of cardio they're doing, the amount of calories. I think also sometimes during a peak week protocol, a lot of the time, calorie management and loading carbohydrates can actually bring back a period. That's happened before with some competitors that I've worked with. So yeah, it's definitely possible. But I think the original quote might have been something like, you know, there was this discussion with there's a particular coach in Australia that was advising ladies to take a week off when they had their period, which I think is an absolute joke. Yep. It's absolutely retarded to do that, because imagine if you're competing and you've just gone to Paris for the Olympic Games, and once a month, every week, you're like, you know, got my period, I better not train today. That's ridiculous. Yeah. No one in their right mind would do that. That's a professional athlete. So a coach that was doing this was just spreading bullshit. And it's just like, the next thing, it's like, okay, what is the next gimmick? There's always a next gimmick, but that was just completely retarded. Let's be real. Well,
it's good to know. Now, this is a personal question. Not many have asked this. And you've probably heard it, like Philippa told me, if I don't do hip thrust, I'm no good in the bedroom. So I've had to ask some of the girls, am I good in the bedroom? And thankfully, no, I'm just joking. I'm just elaborating further. I'm being a smart ass. But Philippa did tell me that if I don't do hip thrust, I'm probably not good in the bedroom. Now, my question that girls would be wanting to know from you, and I'm going to ask you a question for me as a guys, but firstly for the girls, what is the best glute exercise? Now, the girls are listening. What is the best?
I think it's probably first and foremost the exercise that you have the best connection with.
Okay.
So
okay, good. Yep.
I'm a big fan of establishing a mind to muscle connection.
Yep.
And I was having a discussion with one of my competitors actually. She doesn't like hip thrusts.
Right.
We've been analyzing her form. We've been adjusting things. We've tried a tuck. We've tried a limited range of motion. We've found for her, like, hip extension just doesn't work. It's complete hip extension, and that, which means locking out the hips. And we've tried doing, let's say, partial repetitions, or even, let's say, 60% range of motion, which we find for her works better than completing full repetitions. But some people just don't like the exercise. It could be an execution problem. It could be a structural problem. And sometimes they just prefer a squatting pattern. So I think that there isn't one super exercise that everyone must do. I think it's important that you find what works for you. I mean, if I'm going to go to the gym and do glutes, for example, I'm going to avoid a glute kickback. It's not an exercise that I like.
Okay.
But some ladies, for example,
what do you like?
Will do that.
What? Speaking of mind connection, what do you connect well with when you do a glute exercise?
I think so. RDLs are very good.
RDLs,
I find that the stretch is good. A hip thrust or a glute bridge is very good.
Yep.
I also like a belt squat. I think a squatting, when you've got your hips out, you're hinging through the hips. Getting that lower glute activation, I find in a squatting pattern works really well. But it's also training in a certain range of motion that's going to help hit that area. So if I'm doing a belt squat, if I go ass to grass, it's going to activate a lot more quads. So I've got to restrict my range of motion to squat slightly above parallel, keep my bum or my hips out, and squat in that range to activate the glutes. But as soon as I go beyond that level, if I go lower than parallel and I'm squatting ass to grass, it's going to get the quad activation. So it's not just exercise selection, it's also about modifying the range of motion for the exercise. And sometimes also ladies will execute form really well, but their tempo's off, right? So sometimes slowing things down to really get that mind to muscle connection is important. So for me, it's always about tempo and creating that mind to muscle. And if your mind to muscle is not there on an exercise, don't add load, reduce the load, get your form down, and find out if this exercise is right for you. So if you don't like a hip thrust, maybe you got to reduce the load to get that connection, and then add load once the form's there. Because for me, there's certain exercises, like an RDL was one of the exercises I didn't like to begin with, because I was like, is this supposed to be hamstring? I'm getting a lot of lower back here.
Mate, it took a while for me to understand that. It took a while. I got there, but it took a while. And it's all about form and mind connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. It's a game changer. So, having that level of humility, I guess, just to be a student of the game when you're into the gym and make those adjustments.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, for a moment I thought Philip was going to take my head off because I said hip thrust seems a little zesty. And then she told me that I'm no good in the bedroom if I don't do hip thrust. And I guess it's just kind of like when you come from an old school bodybuilding, trust me, we didn't have a mentality. We used to train full body at times. We'd ask people to spot us and the guy would say, how many do you want to get out? And I said, 8. I was like, he'd even raise it with 2 reps. And I still tried to get 8. We were crazy trainers back then, but we somehow got results. I think it was the fact we just turned up and we annihilated the place. So I guess looking at girls doing hip thrust, which seems to me right, some of the weight they push, I can't even squat that. I can't, you know what I mean? Like, it's incredible. But like you said, I think the most important thing is which we do forget, I think it's the mind and body connection, but I think it's also your patience, your form and repetition. It's very important, which I can be guilty of being very lazy with. I think it's easy to be lazy.
Yeah. And I think if you're finding if an exercise is for you, like I remember when I sort of grew up training with more of a powerlifting style.
Yep.
And I was like, lifting A to B, go as heavy as possible. That's what I was taught.
Yeah.
And, squat, bench, deadlift as heavy as possible. Mm-hmm. And the bench, because of my long levers, because I'm decently tall, I'm 6'2", I always was a weak bencher because of my arm. I'm making an excuse here, of my arm length, right? So I've got to bench, I've got to have a larger range of motion. But the problem with me going from A to B with a bench press is I use a lot of shoulders. I use a lot of tricep. I was thinking of lifting load, not necessarily lifting with the emphasis on mind to muscle connection. So because I was lifting so heavy, a lot of the load went to my shoulders, triceps, instead of going to my chest. So I had to humble myself, take it back, and I dropped the weight back, and then my chest started growing. And I was just like, is this what I needed to do? This is obviously the discovery phase, when you realize that lifting heavy isn't the way to go sometimes without being intelligent with your form. So I stripped the weight back, lifted a lot less, and other people looking at me being interesting. Those the days that I cared, when I wanted everyone to know how strong I was. And I went back and it was like, oh, you're not as strong as you used to be. It's like, yeah, okay. And then you're going, I'm on the hammer strength, incline press, and I'm just doing a plate on each side just to get my squeeze happening.
Yeah.
They're like, you used to do 3-4 plates of this. What's wrong with you? And
the ego.
I had to go through that process as well.
The ego. God, it gets us. Well, this one, me and Chris, we laughed at it because we thought it was very witty and quite smart. Mindset coaches are like failed psychologists. That is sensational. I could have said it better, but go ahead. Mindset coaches are like failed psychologists. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, that says everything, but to expand on that, I do think that there are people out there that are interested in a quick dollar without Psychology work is probably the most important thing that you can do in terms of the profession. I think that if your mental health is on point, you can conquer anything. You can have a fruitful relationship with yourself, with other people, with friends, family. Everyone benefits. And for someone to be in a position where they think it's acceptable to adopt a mindset coaching mentality and to persuade people and to encourage people that they've got the answer, when they know wholeheartedly that they don't have the skills to work with someone with depression, work with someone with an eating disorder, to work with someone that has, different mental health issues, it's a problem for me. And I look at these coaches and I just think that they're taking people for they're taking the piss, essentially. They're taking people's money. How impactful is it?
I agree.
I also find it fascinating. There was a particular mindset coach from Queensland who was a former friend of mine who sees a clinical psychologist, and I know who probably.
Oh no! Yes, I know what you're going to say next.
The best position, right?
I know what you're going to say next. Yes, go ahead.
Exactly. So you see a clinical psychologist, right? Why don't you refer your clients to see one?
Yes, I agree.
If it's so impactful, and if you believe in it wholeheartedly, why isn't that the solution? But all of a sudden you've got the solution because you're putting $1 to it and you want to provide a service. You're not a happy person yourself. At what point are you going to give advice to other people and to claim that you have all the answers when you don't have the answers to your life? So it's crazy.
You can see I'm flicking to the back of my questions here. Some of the people spoke about you, and I'm going to go over the people in a second. I'm not going to mention names, but you could probably work them out yourself sometimes. But someone spoke to me about you managing and embracing their prep and comp, even when they were on medication for mental health. And I know, because you wouldn't be seeing a psychologist if you didn't feel like you had some mental health issues yourself. But I remember medication can fluctuate your weight dramatically and also play mind games with you. And myself, as I'm not a mindset coach, I was seeing a girl, she's a good friend of mine, but she wanted to get off her medication. And I said to her, yeah, I can help you. But she goes, I just want to do it quickly. And I said, then I can't help you. Meaning, I said to her, it's going to take 12 weeks for us to get off it. We're going to do it real slow. Only because I've been there or I've seen it. And like you said, I don't want to charge for it because I'll send you to a psychologist if you want to pay for it. Does that make sense? And I think, like you said, these charlatans that I know people that talk about mindset and are on antidepressants and they're on high doses. And I think to myself, that I could never imagine offering advice, even bodybuilding advice, if I didn't eat well. Like it just, everything plays hand in hand. And hence, when I read this quote, excuse me, mindset coaches are like failed psychologists. It's probably one of my pet hates when I see out there at the moment. It makes me sad because I don't think it really has any value other than taking one's money. Unfortunately, that's how I feel. Whether I'm right or wrong, it doesn't matter.
I think most people would agree, apart from the mindset coaches. I mean, they've got a business to protect.
We're gonna, you know what, me and you, Troy, we're gonna do a podcast on mindset coaches, and we'll bring them on. We'll have a laugh.
That would be interesting. If you can get it happening, I'm down. I'm ready to go. So be ready to debate.
Me and you ready to debate. Okay. You said, ladies, your coach sucks, and here's why. And one of your quotes were, if you were flat on show day, it's your coach's fault. But let's elaborate further because I know there's more to it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that there's an idea where there's probably a lack of education around what would be the ideal physique that's peaked on show day. And even with me, when I first competed, I competed in one season, when I was 23 years old.
Yeah, I want to know that. Federation. Yeah, please tell us. Yeah, go ahead.
And that was really cool. Like I went through that experience, and I didn't even know at the time what even flat and full meant. So we all go through that process of discovery where, again, we're not masters of the game, we're a beginner. And I went through the process of that beginner phase, my first contest. And when I started a carb up process, I was lucky enough that I hired a good coach that educated me on these things. And when you do have a good coach that educates you on the carb up process and you actually implemented a game plan that works, you're like, wow, this is what it's supposed to look like. This is what it's supposed to feel like. Then you have that element of comparison where you see others that haven't gone through that experience. And then you also talk to them and go, oh, what'd you eat during peak week? And they tell you like, oh, red flag, red flag, red flag. So it's actually, I believe, it's neglect to not have your clients full on show day. It's actually not that challenging to carb up someone appropriately. And I think that coaches, number one, probably don't have the knowledge to be able to do that successfully. Number two, they probably also have an element of neglect and maybe not having the education. And three, are you actually analyzing and looking at your clients' photos during a peak week and on show day, are you making adjustments? A lot of the time you'll see coaches will go, here's your peak week plan for the week. How are you supposed to know how someone's going to look on a Thursday or Friday? That doesn't make any sense to me. You know, you need that check-in to assess photos and videos to see what they look like and then make adjustments on the fly. You can't just go, this is your show day plan on, let's say if your show's on a Saturday, right? I can't say, here's your show day plan on Friday and just not make any adjustments on the fly on the Saturday of the day of the competition. Sometimes your metabolism's speeding up. Sometimes that you could go, all right, this is the ballpark. We're going to use X amount of carbohydrates. And then you assess someone's physique and go, oh, you're still flat. We need to bump food, you know, or hold on a second. You filled out a little bit too quickly. We need to be a little bit more conservative. Oh, you've got bloating. Okay. Why have you got bloating? What have we changed? How much water have you had? You need to make adjustments on the fly. So I don't agree with the whole concept of giving someone a peak week plan or a show day plan. It's like, no, they need to have adjustments on the fly. You look at photos and videos, and this is why people are flat on show day, or athletes are, male or female, doesn't matter. So I think it's a lack of passion, a lack of care, lack of education. There's a few things. It could be multiple, right? It could be all the above, but it happens a lot where I see ladies that walk on stage. I'm thinking, you know, you might be underdeveloped, but that doesn't mean that you're carved up, right? Because sometimes like, oh, look, I don't have the size. Like, no, you don't have size, but you're actually not carved up either. Like, it's a difference. And some people go, oh, you need to add more size, but an experienced eye will be going, hold on. Yes, you need more development, but you're actually, I can see that your muscle's flat. And to have that experience and the attention to detail, I think a few coaches have that, but not a lot.
Well, exactly like you said, this is why some coaches suck. The next part was, do not hire a posing coach that cannot pose themselves.
I think look, that's self-explanatory. It blows my mind. Some people do. It's actually spectacular where I'll get and I welcome people to message me at any time, whether you're a client or not. If you're not a client, it doesn't bother me. I'm happy to give you advice.
Yep.
And sometimes I get messages saying, hey, Troy, what do you think about so-and-so as a posing coach? And I think, have you done any research? Have you actually looked at this person and how they pose themselves? They can't even hit a front pose correctly. Why would you want to learn from someone who can't pose well themselves? It's a very logical way to look at it, but I just think people don't have that level of critique. But I suppose one asking the question to begin with would say that they're not certain, which is good. You're asking the right question.
Yeah, that's true.
You're going to trust your gut and go, all right, if I have to ask the question to Troy or to another coach, perhaps this isn't the right fit. You want to have a level of certainty and go, you know what? This person's a spectacular posing coach because they've got all these client results. Let me go with this person, right? I'm going to commit to the process. And because this posing coach has the results, I'm going to go there. Don't go with someone that hasn't even put the work in. If they haven't done well with what they've got, how are they going to help you cross the line? It doesn't make any sense.
And I think as well, just something crossed my mind while you were saying all that, the difference between a good coach and an exceptional coach, or a poor coach to a good coach, the monetary value isn't that great. And they've just got to be careful. It's not, they're not saving in any aspect. The choice predominantly is worth its value by choosing the right one. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I'll give you an example. Let's just look at it in a way. I don't know what prices are, but I'm just going to play around with joking prices. So an average coach might be $100, and an exceptional coach or a good coach is $120 or $130 or $140. Just, I'm just saying that $20 in the scheme of turning up to a comp is worth every cent. That's what I mean. Like, it is to search for a good coach. Shouldn't be your concern on what you're going to pay, because relatively the charlatans are charging the same price.
Exactly. And that's the reality. It's, if I think that the whole thing is like, it goes back to the goal. If you're competing, what result do you want? What is the outcome that you want to achieve? Mm-hmm. And if you're putting all this time, effort into a prep, a little bit more money for an experienced coach that is going to get a better outcomes, probably a good idea to budget for. And if you can't budget for it this season, perhaps don't do this season. Just wait a little bit. Yeah, go for the next season.
I like that. Like that. Yeah.
Save up and put more time into it. You're not going to be disappointed. You will be disappointed, if you don't have the support, you don't have the experience, if you're flat on show day, all these different things. You want to produce the best result possible. So it's like, more time's always an answer. You don't have to compete now. You can compete next season.
I'm taking that advice, and not so much just on competing. Stop using thyroid hormone if you can't get in shape. Without the use of thyroid hormone, you should not be competing.
Yeah, I like that one. And it's a common problem where coaches will throw in, PEDs, performance enhancement, where that is the solution, where I believe that a solution is a proper off-season, setting up a metabolism, putting someone in a position where they can diet down in an efficient manner, in a slow manner, that's not needing to add in something randomly to speed up the process. Because a lot of the time, adding in thyroid hormone, it can create hormonal problems post-contest. A lot of the time, there's going to be a post-contest rebound. Some ladies, or not even gender specific, but some people, when they come off thyroid hormone, whether it's T3, T4, their levels are screwed. And then levels might be screwed for 6 months, 12 months. I've had ladies that have come to me from other teams where they've used T3, T4. There's one particular competitor that I won't say her name, but she was on T4. And I said, what was your protocol? What did you do? Sent me a list of the stuff that she'd done. Her blood work was like in the red for the thyroid. I thought, ooh. I'm like, let's not go down the road of being medicated. I go, let's see if we can get this back. It took her over 12 months to recover her levels. And she put on, in that time frame, because she came to me after the fact, after the post-contest binge, she was well over 20 kilos over stage weight with a very, very slow metabolism that just went from the red to a regular level, and her metabolism wasn't great. She wasn't eating a lot of calories. So imagine being 20 plus kilos over stage weight. Unfortunately, she felt a level of depression, and she didn't have the best body image.
100%,
And on top of that, she's not able to eat all the foods, and she's so paranoid about the idea of eating out because she doesn't want to gain more weight, because she knows that her metabolism is compromised. So people will go for, this is a solution. It's a Band-Aid. Okay, you can get in shape with it, but what does it look like after contest? What happens when you get off it? And a lot of the time, ladies don't think about the consequence of what it's like post-contest when using performance enhancement. So I think using thyroid, particularly with females, is lazy coaching. I know that there's an argument for bodybuilders. It's a completely another topic. I find that, for a bikini competitor, the fact that performance enhancement is used so commonly and it's just thrown in like it's a normal thing, I think it's unethical coaching, and it's really focusing on the result more than anything rather than their health.
I think it's like you said, I know the thyroid is such an important area, because I don't know a lot about it. I don't know about the drugs you're talking about and the T level, T1, T3, T4, T whatever. But what I do know is overstimulated thyroid can create depression. So you've got to be very careful with that. You know what I mean? It's not an area. But I do think it's sad, I think what I'm learning from you in this podcast so far is your concern isn't only about, you're driven to make them win and be the best shape they can be, but you also know they need to live with themselves after it, and that isn't good repeat business, if that makes sense. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a correct way to look at it. And I think that naturally, if the goal is to care and to provide value, the business is going to come.
Yeah.
So my focus isn't like, I need to get as much business as possible. If you're like doing the best job possible and you have, clients' best interest at heart and you educate them, the business is going to come automatically.
I agree with you, mate. I think you're doing it, Troy. I think you're really doing it, man. So get going,
Oh, thank you. And I definitely think that there are coaches out there that will sacrifice their health for a before and after photo. And a lot of the time, social media will show that, but you won't know until you go through the process and you go, wow, I actually used a lot of different hormones for this prep. You're a bikini competitor. There's so many other variables and metrics that you can work on without even going down that road. And if you want to use performance enhancement, by all means you can, but think of it from the perspective of the least effective dosage. And if you have pre-existing conditions, depression, anxiety, you need to realize that manipulating and using PEDs can enhance depression. It can enhance anxiety. It can create, a level of dysfunction with your hormones and your ability to regulate your emotions. If you take, for example, a bit of Anavar, it is absolutely going to make you irritable. It is absolutely going to challenge your decision-making. It's absolutely going to challenge your temper. And that's just on a very surface level without looking at things and like, for example, your blood work.
Yeah. It's funny, you're answering so many questions. Like I wondered what makes, firstly, any coach, but who is this Troy? Like I said, and first and foremost, I think you're, from the mindset we started with, and we're going to come into some of your books, it makes a lot of sense why you're successful in your business. I don't think your business mold is about, I think there's a journey that needs to be played out for both the athlete to grow from and succeed from, but also to harvest you as a coach, to also have you be able to treat this business with that respect. And respecting your athletes is predominantly happy customer, happy business. You know what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, I'm in the service business.
You are in the service business. Exactly what I was going to say. Yes, correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Your coach is turning you into a lady boy. Oh, forget about lady boy, bikini boy. Ladies use so much PEDs that they're ruining their femininity. We're in the sport for a short time, not a long time. You do not need a boatload of drugs. Let's get the results to get the results you want.
Yeah, that's a good one, and it's true. I think that ladies will chase they like the idea of the result of an outcome, but they don't like the idea of putting in the work. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. I think that's what it all stems down to, creating that burning desire, but also doing it in a way where it's healthy and it's sustainable in the long run. Because if you're damaging your body, I've seen ladies will go through a process, and bikini also in other categories as well, where they will do whatever it takes. They'll have the mind, I'll do whatever it takes, Troy, that mindset. But then whatever it takes also means compromising the health and using silly things. Next thing you know, the vocal cords are changing. Next thing you know, downstairs is growing. It happens more often than you might think. And it's a problem. It's a lack of education, and it's complete negligence with coaches, and they know what they're doing, and they will push the PEDs and go, this is a safe thing, But just for example, going back on the thyroid, just because you don't grow downstairs doesn't mean it's not bad for you. Of course it is, because there's other issues that can come into play, which we discussed, but no performance enhancement drug is safe. That's the reality. There is some level of consequence from using it, even if you're using it in a conservative fashion. So now, with all this said, I'm not against using performance enhancement. I think there is a place for it. It just needs to be used as intelligently as possible. And there needs to be feedback and communication with, the client and coach. And there needs to be a game plan around what the goal is right now, and also the sustainability of it and how to manage it in the long run over the next 6, 12, 2 months, 2 years, 3 years, etc. How long do you want to compete for? Competing isn't for the rest of your life. And to sacrifice your health, your femininity, there's been ladies that I've spoken to that said, I wish I didn't take this because their vocal cords damaged. It's craziness. And that's something that they're going to have to carry with them for the rest of their life, because once your vocal cords damaged, it's game over. And, as let's be real, as men, it's really nice to talk to a woman that's just got a nice tonality. That's what we like.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what also creates a level of femininity. Like, what do females like to do? They like to look pretty. They like to sound pretty. And men, we like to do the opposite, right? We like to look tough. We like to sound tough and have a nice tonality.
Yeah.
And I think the big part of your personality, your vocal cords, and for it to be abused and for it to be changed in a contest prep or even an off season for a short-term vision is ridiculous. You're not looking at the long-term consequences. And some ladies will also go through a process where they'll feel it. And what happens is that you almost feel like a sense of like raspberryness in your vocal cords, like it scratches your throat. That's the first sign you need to jump off. So if you're a competitor that's using performance enhancement as a female and you have that side effect, that's a sign right now to jump off before it gets any worse, because the body will always give warning signs. And if you're getting that warning sign, don't play around with it and go, oh, it's only a little bit longer, let me just push it. There are ladies that have done that and that have made a big mistake. And then the next thing you know, you've got that for the rest of your life.
I remember when I first went into business, Troy, and I said, I'll sell my soul for money. And that was when it all went wrong. So in other words, I just want this. I just want to win. And selling yourself for that win can cost you a lot. And you don't need to sell anything for success. What you need to do is not sell. You need to buy into things that are the right way to do it. Someone said to me, I'm not here to boast. I have a few cars, right? I've got a few cars. And someone said, why don't you sell one of them? And I said, I can. I said, I can sell all of them, but if I found a solution on how to make money, that's not the solution to make money. So how about I work out how to keep them? That's the problem. That's what I need to do. My brother-in-law once said he makes a lot more money than me. But I said to him once, what do you do? How did you afford that? At the time, he bought an Aston Martin. I think it was around about 300 grand. I've never bought an Aston Martin, by the way, 300 grand. And I said, what made you buy that car? He goes, I love it. And I said, how do you do it? He goes, I don't think about how to do it. I think about how to keep it. So once I buy it, I work hard to keep it. So he goes, I just get it and work how to keep it. So everything he does, he just works how to keep it. And it's a good mindset to have. Does that make sense?
I love that mindset. And I think that I kind of adopted that as well, where, to have a mindset of how to, it's a mindset of abundance. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to figure out not how to save money, how to create more wealth.
Exactly.
And that's something that I resonate with as well.
Okay. I like this one. I liked wanting to win and having a winning attitude is better than winning is everything. Now,
yeah.
I'll say it again because people aren't going to get it, but hear me out. Wanting to win. A winning attitude is better than winning is everything. Troy, That's got to be the best quote I've ever heard in my fucking life. You broke winning down perfectly. In other words, you're saying, instead of believing winning is everything, build a winning mentality. That is sensational.
No, thank you.
Wow.
And it's interesting because I used to have the mindset that winning was everything. So it's interesting that I came to the conclusion that it wasn't. And obviously through that process, I was like, yo, I've just come up with a ripper, because it's something that I believe in.
No, it's a ripper.
If you train to win, you want to win, and you have that winning mentality,
Yeah.
right? If you fall short of that goal, that's okay.
Yeah.
You're going to keep going. You're going to build momentum. You're probably going to win regardless in the future anyway. But when your sole focus is on winning, and if you don't win, it's a complete disaster, because your whole identity has been based around you winning. But what is winning is essentially having that mindset, having that resilience, having that ability to push through and to be all in committed, and to keep that desire, and to even fall short of a goal, to keep pushing through like a champion. I mean, that to me is everything.
Yeah, like I said, you said you've taken a few things away. I mean, that one was, I've taken many things away from just listening to you during this podcast. We've still got a bit to go, but that one, like, I had to read it a few times because it just made so much sense. I said, how do I put it down on paper for me to repeat what you just quoted? So, I mean, hats off to you. I'm going to just segue out a little bit to something more, when I say interesting, something we can elaborate. I want to go into your book highlights. You know, your books. And let me tell you, I nearly got RSI going through your highlights with your books. I'm there going, when does this fucking stop? You know what I mean? But let me go through a few of them, and you just give us some key points. I haven't read these books, but Chris has read one or two of them. I have read one or two of them. But the dichotomy of leadership, Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. So obviously division or contrast between two ideas. That's what dichotomy means. Why that book?
I think at the time when I purchased it, I was just seeking, I was a sponge, and I wanted to learn a bit about everything. And that's where I was like, I'm on this journey to find some really interesting ideas, things that I can implement, right? Because as I said before, like about education, you need to be in a position where you want to learn and to expand. Expansion is inevitable if you look for it. And for me, I was like, all right, I'm not going to lie. I typed in top 10 motivational books on Google, top 10 self-development books, top 10 this, top 10 that. And then I would look at and go, okay, I'm just going to buy this. I'm going to go through it and work through it. And because Jocko is obviously a Navy SEAL,
yes,
I mean, that to me was really relatable, where I was like, yo, this mindset that I'm trying to achieve, this is what I'm aiming for. I need to learn from someone that's great. And the fact that he went through Navy SEAL training, Hell Week, for people that don't know, is excruciating. It's the most insane process hopefully you can go through. Just to go through that and to complete it is an achievement in itself. And for me, wanting to learn from someone that was capable of going through that, and then to go beyond that and to have a successful career in that, and to now have his own podcast and to be a motivational speaker, I was like, I need to learn more from this guy. So for me, that was definitely one of the decisions that led me to purchasing that book. And I look at his content as well. I always look at the snippets, the reels, and he has some rippers. And I think it's important to find people that you resonate with, or find people that you can learn things from. And for me, that was the quest that I had. I need to learn more about this guy. And I definitely learn a lot from him. And you'll also find that something that might resonate with you, let's say in this case with me back then, probably doesn't resonate as much now, because if we're always on a trajectory of expansion, we'll accept an idea, we'll believe in it, and then we'll move on to the next thing. And then we need to be pushed in other realms. So I've always, I suppose, resonated with different people at different stages of my life. And some people I read a book and I just didn't hit right. And I was like, I don't understand this. Like, what's up with this? And someone probably that comes to mind, I suppose, before I started seeing a clinical psychologist, I used to attempted to read Robin Sharma's books. And I'm like, everyone's saying this guy's amazing. I'm really struggling to read this. And to be fair, I thought it was very hippie shit at the time, right? Very immature way to look at it. But I wasn't ready to receive that information. So it's also about, okay, I've got access to this, but are you ready to receive it? And sometimes in life, you're not ready to receive the information that's in front of you. So you might need to revisit that later. And that's something that I've also done.
Well, another book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. A friend of mine, she's staying with me at the moment. When I wrote that down, she goes, oh, I'm actually listening to that book at the moment. So why that book? What can you share for people to go read that book?
That's probably in my top 3 books of all time. And like I mentioned before, it's not an easy read, so it does require a bit of discipline, and the attention does happen to, you know, go off on a tangent. You might start daydreaming when you read it. So I understand it's a challenging book, but why is it so important? Because it creates a different perspective in your mind, where goal setting is important, where affirmations are important. And we talked about the burning desire to succeed. That as a concept for me didn't exist until I read that book properly. And I've read that book a few times over. The first time I read it, I was like, wow, this is incredible. And this is interesting. I need to like start writing goals. Like then you start researching, you know, I had an idea of, I read the book, I'm like, burning desire, this makes sense. How can I best make use of this? How can I implement it? So the next thing you know, I'm researching how to write affirmations and how to do it correctly. And then you're looking at different books and comparing. So it starts something in your mind that's a catalyst for more growth and for an opportunity to learn more. And all right, I'm going to now start affirmations. And if you read Think and Grow Rich, it might give you something that you need in terms of that inspiration to try something different. And for me, it was about goal setting. It was about creating that burning desire. And if there's one thing that I take from that book, it is that all achievement, like I said, all achievement stems from a burning desire. And if you can create that burning desire and keep that wholeheartedly in you, you'll absolutely never fail.
I don't know if I've read that book. I've got a few books here too myself, but I've got to get, like, I don't just listening to everything you've been saying, I got rituals and habits, but you know what? I've realised after listening to you so far, you know what? I'm not taking it seriously. I'm just doing it carefree, like whatever. I need to be knuckling down a little bit, and I'm not. So hopefully from tonight and tomorrow, I knuckle down on my rituals and habits a bit better. I do them, but I do them on the fly. I don't think it's going to work. Release Your Brakes by James Newman. The Pace. Owner, operator manual for using your untapped potential. Getting where you want to go faster, easier, having a lot more fun along the way.
Yeah, that I'm glad that you actually selected that one, because that is a ripper. That is one of the best books you can read. Again, not an easy read. It's a challenging read. It's about exactly what I mentioned. It's about goal setting affirmations. I would recommend, if one was to do that, read Think and Grow Rich first, and then go to Release Your Brakes, because it will provide more context.
That's it.
It's actually,
I'm circling them. Yep.
It's like you'll understand what I mean when you start reading it. Like, ooh, this is tough. I've got to like actually not just read it. I've got to take notes. I've got to soak it in. It's one of those books where it takes, maybe you might need to read a page a couple times over just to let it, because there's been times where I didn't understand a concept properly, and you don't want to just speed read it. You want to soak it in and really take the time to absorb, because it's like having a conversation. You can listen to someone, you can hear them, but are you understanding what they're saying? And it's the same thing with the book. You really want to take the time and be patient to absorb and think about how it can be implemented. But Release Your Brakes is actually perfect for the affirmations and the goals, probably more so the affirmation side of things, where it shows you, ways to write the affirmations and different examples. So I only discovered that book sort of more so recently, and I thought, wow, that would have saved me a lot of time and research, because, and they're connected too. That's the thing. A lot of good books are connected. Those two are very old school books, and a lot of new school books are influenced by those two. They will quote them quite a lot, and you'll see that consistent. Like, success leaves clues. It's like it's absolutely important to look at what people have written in the past, because you think of it like this. We talked about Jordan Peterson before. He's written a few books. His whole life work is in that book. There's surely there's a fountain of knowledge in that book. It's a gift. There may be only a chapter that might resonate with you, but that chapter can be so impactful for who you are right now and where you want to be. And then maybe another chapter in a 3 months time, 6 months, 12 months down the line could resonate. Like, wow, I wasn't ready to receive that information, but now I am. I'm so glad I'm back to that chapter. And Jordan Peterson could resonate in that case.
I have to say, no, I like Jordan Peterson, but Chris will laugh at this. But when I listen to a Jordan Peterson podcast, Jesus Christ, Peter or Jordan, whatever your name is, get the question out. He takes 15 minutes. I'm thinking like, for God's sake, Peter, please, Jordan, whatever your name is, you've started with a question and now you've given 5 questions and the answer, and the guy hasn't even answered it. So he kills me. He kills me.
Yeah. Did you watch the Elon Musk interview?
No, how was that?
Oh, it was like that because the problem I think is Jordan Peterson is such an intellectual where he can't help himself. It's almost hard to articulate with the knowledge that the audience may not understand what you're saying. Like you got to understand that the use of vocabulary, the intention is for the audience to listen to and to receive it. Sometimes his message is confused and lost. The first time I heard him, I was like, oh, that's a little bit too much. Like you're making it hard to understand the ideas. Like you've got all this knowledge, but you're making it challenging. Now I've sort of listened to his content and read his books enough where I can, receive it properly. Oh, right. But he does make it difficult. It's like if he just, let's call it, dumb down his use of language. And
double down, bro. Double down. He's intelligent.
Donald Trumpet.
Donald Trumpet. But even myself, you got no idea how many times I go, shut the fuck up, Steve. Like, shut up, Steve. Shut up. I'm sick of your story of the cars. I'm sick of your fucking stories. Let the person, and also the, shut up, Steve. So this podcast, I say to Chris, how did I fucking get away with that, man? That's shit. So I have to, I think, Jordan, if you're listening, you're the man. I'm not the man, but please dumb it down for people like me, please. Easy, Trumpify it for us.
Exactly. Donald Trump that shit.
Start with why. Simon Sinek. How great leaders inspire everyone to take action. Good book. Is that a good book?
Yeah, it's a great book. And you know what you're doing right now? You're making me want to read these things again.
Yeah, well.
I'm gonna have to revisit it. This is good. And it's probably about time that I revisited some of these. So start with why. I think the title is really, it's a good title where it sort of gives an example of what's needed. I mean, everyone needs to understand what their why is. If you can connect your why to a goal, the goal is going to be more meaningful. And then you've got something to create. And that stems to a burning desire. If you can connect your why to a goal, it's going to create that burning sensation where you know exactly wholeheartedly what you want to achieve and you can push towards it. So I like the idea of figuring out what the goal is, but then establishing a why. Like, okay, what you want to compete, for example, but what is the reason? Like, what is your why? Once you figure out your why, you're going to have something to train for. You're going to have something to work towards, and you're going to be more disciplined when you figure that out.
I mean, just to, because something you said a little bit further back, but with this as well. Like, firstly, Simon Sinek, whatever his name is. I like how he makes you accountable. He's a very accountable kind of guy. In other words, he's the fish rots from the head down. So if you don't want your business to fail, be the owner and the manager and the director and the boss of the business that people aspire to want to be, and teach people something, give them some value, not just the money or not the status or the ego. So Simon is quite good at that. But it's funny, Troy, I went, firstly I was going to say something to you. and I haven't done them recently, so maybe this is why me and Chris, I'm not saying we're struggling, we're doing great. You'd be surprised how good we're doing, but how erratic it is. When I've written my goals innocently, and not only written goals, so when you write down a goal, let's just say, Troy, you write your 2-year goals, you want a Ferrari. Let's just write that. Doesn't matter. Just write that. Now, if you laugh at it and you erase it, you're fucked. You have to laugh at it and it's got to stay. So, in other words, if it's ridiculous and you're not writing it, then what are you going for? So you got to write your goals not measured. Yes, somewhat realistic, but there's some things that have to be laughable when you look at them. Like, there's no chance, but I'll write it. This is too funny. I'm going to, hang out with Richard Branson on the space trip. That's funny. I'm going to write that. But you got to write it. That's the thing. You just got to write it. And somehow that manifests it. But the other thing is, when I was just a bit younger than you, I went to New Zealand and I bought some property. I went by myself in 8 days. I didn't even know New Zealand. I just read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and he said you can make money from nothing. And I believed him. But I didn't know how. How do I make money from nothing? And because I went to New Zealand, I learned they don't have stamp duty. That's one. 2, they've got a bank over there. So I borrowed 80% of the money over there, and I borrowed 20% of the money from an Australian bank. So I borrowed 100%. And then a year later, I sold it for $110,000 more. So I made money from nothing. It was hilarious. And there was no capital gains tax. But what I'm trying to say to you, that person that I was at 34, I don't have him right now. That's why I have to develop myself again. Don't believe because you did it once. Like, you have to fucking go back. You got to find the skills, the innocence, the belief. And that's never ending. That's why I said some people die at 30 but are buried at 80 because they never live. You always got to try to fucking live. And that's what's, like I said to you, I think you can resonate with what I'm saying. Let's talk about comps. Just because you won last year's comp, that's great. You were naive. But when you're going in with a bit more experience, I hate to say it, but this is going to be tougher. And that's why we have to toughen up. I have to toughen up. And sometimes in manic, you've got to spook yourself a bit. You've got to try again because that's how you did it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. I think you made some really good points there. And I think at the end of the day, it's about having that unquestionable self-belief and having certainty. And setting big, audacious goals is something I believe in. And that's something that, look, success leaves clues. A lot of these individuals that are, I suppose, popular on social media that are business coaches, they all say the same thing. So if they're all saying the same thing, they're not saying it for a reason. And when I was goalless or when I didn't have my affirmations, I can certainly say I wasn't achieving much because I had nothing to think about it, nothing to work towards. I didn't have that visual. But when I have those goals and I've achieved a lot of the goals that I've set for myself, then obviously you add more goals in. Through that process, I've been able to push myself and apply myself. So completely understand that, I've got some interesting goals as well that I've set for myself, and some things more achievable in the short term. And then other things I'm like, oh, all right, that's a superstar goal. Let's see what we can do there. So there might be you never know what is possible unless you try. I mean, I remember when I first had when I first started to get into the workforce, I was like, I think a good amount of money to make would be like 1,000 clear a week. That was always a goal for me.
Oh my God, yeah.
And, and I suppose grew up with humble beginnings. Like, I shared a room with my brother, for example. It's a 3-bedroom house. My 2 sisters shared a room together as well. We lived in a weatherboard house with a tin roof. We used to get hand-me-downs from like my cousins, and like I used to be grateful to get a basketball jersey from like one of my older cousins and think I was cool because I got all the good stuff, and I'm like, I get to select all the stuff that they've outgrown. This is awesome. So $1,000 for me was a lot of money. that the idea of that, because that's what my parents said. My dad said $1,000 is a lot of money a week. So I'm like, okay, that's the goal then, right? That was the goal for me. And then when I achieved that, I'm like, I'm so happy and proud of myself. I, getting $1,000 clear a week. This is exactly what I've been focusing on. It's exactly what I got. And the interesting part about it is that I remember when I worked at the Arnold Classic Australia, that's exactly what they paid me. I remember going for the job interview. I was like, spoke to Tony. And I had this in my head. I'm like, this is always in my head because that's what my dad said, $1,000 a week, $1,000 a week, $1,000 a week. And I had the interview with Tony and he said, we're going to offer you $1,000 clear a week. Are you happy with that? And I thought, ooh, this is spectacular. This is exactly what I've been thinking about over and over again. My dad's just embedded this in my mind. And it was just fascinating that came to fruition.
I think, like I said, I think, because I want to get to the next book, I think we need to remember whatever was our driving force. Sometimes you've got to remember what was that driving force, and you've got to revisit it, because we do leave it at times, because discipline is the you've mentioned this, we'll get to that shortly, but discipline is the drive. And I think sometimes as we're building success, sometimes we don't continually have the discipline. And that's what I found with myself. If someone said to me, can you go to New Zealand and buy property now? I know this is going to sound strange to you, Troy, but I'll say no. And I said, why? Because that fucking motherfucker at 34 was unstoppable. But I can become him again. I just need to start training that. So that's what I mean. If I'm looking to buy property in Dubai, well, when I bought in New Zealand, I didn't just jump on a plane. It took research 12 weeks before I went, researching the property market, the rental market, the legal part, the capital gains part. I was speaking to banks. But then there was the element when I jumped on the plane, I actually said, because I hadn't finalized anything, I said, well, how about we just go to find out? That's why I went. I didn't go to buy. I just went to find out. And I went for 8 days. And by the 4th day, I knew Christchurch better than anybody. And at 7 p.m. at night, after seeing, be honest with you, 10, 20, 30, 40 properties by then, because that's what I was doing. It was 7 p.m. at night, and I just said to the person, how much is this? And she told me a price. And I didn't even negotiate because I knew it was a good buy. I said, I'll take it. She goes, what? I said, I'll take it. And then I had 4 days to go sightseeing. So I bought it on the 4th day. And so that's what I mean. Sometimes you've built up for it, but then you realize, I've got to turn up. Well, maybe don't turn up to buy, but at least turn up. And that's when all my training took over, my experience took over. And that's kind of a lesson I learned.
You had that desire back then, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I love that. It's interesting that you say that too, because you do have it in you, 100%. Yeah. You've had it before. Yeah. It's just about, if you really want to be that person or to have that fire in you and to do that research and to drive you, you can do that. Absolutely. I mean, there's probably something that you might have done with this podcast. You've said, we're going to make this podcast great.
We are.
You've clearly put in amazing research and you've done a really good job. So it's like, maybe this is your next thing that you're like, all right, this is what I'm fired up about and excited about.
Yeah. But what I wanted to say, what I'm trying to say is, don't bank on the 34-year-old. Me, I'm talking about me. Fuck him. He did well. I'm going to bank on the 55-year-old now. I'm going to be better than that bloke. See, we keep, when your dad tells you stories, what he used to be like and what they were like or what they missed out on. There's two things I learned from my parents. One, my mum said to me, if you're not taking risks and in debt, you're getting nowhere. I said, okay, Mum. That's what she said to me. My dad used to say to me what he could have done. I could have done this, I could have done that. So I said, I'll never say that. And to be honest, Troy, I never say it. Never say. I've never said, even if I didn't buy it, even if I didn't do it, I never say what I could have done. It's got nothing to do with the past. It's only got to do with the future. So, yeah, that 34-year-old that jumped on a plane, left his wife and 1-year-old daughter behind and fucking didn't know what Christchurch was. I like that guy. And I always work towards who that guy was, even though, like I said to you, you said, I am that guy. But that's why the podcast works, because I always remember that 34-year-old, he fucking just had a desire. So with the podcast, we have this desire that, and I think you can tell by the way we approach this thing, we don't want to be average. We want to be the best fucking bodybuilding podcast in Australia, and we're going to aim for it. And that's how we're doing it.
Yeah, I love that. That's yeah, I love what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. A few more books, and then we'll go through a few more things, and then we'll finish up. But Tim Grover, Relentless. Tell us about that book.
Yeah. So I think, okay, so if you're a competitor, I think this is, if you're going to take one book recommendation, take this one out of all the above, because it's something that, number one, it's an easy read. So he uses language that's easy to understand. It's easy to resonate with it because he talks from a coaching perspective to an athlete. And for anyone that doesn't know who Tim Grover is, Michael Jordan's trainer. So when Michael Jordan won those 6 championships at the Bulls, people, I mean, debatable, but people say MJ is the greatest of all time. I think that he is.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact that he's a champion and he dominated that era, there's a lot to learn from Tim Grover and the lessons that he learned while working with MJ. So if you're an athlete, or not even an athlete, just an individual that wants to level up your mindset and understand the championship mentality that both Tim and that MJ had, it's an absolute amazing read. It's going to help propel you to go to the next level. If you don't mind swearing, because he does swear a lot, that's his style, read the book. You'll love it.
And a few more books, and then I'll get back to some of the things you've posted, and especially your pinned posts with Philippa, with Shiana. I don't know, I've got it written down. But tell me about The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. What's that?
Yeah, so we have things that we think about on a conscious level.
Yeah, me.
So thoughts.
Yeah,
right. So we have our thoughts on a day-to-day basis, but we also have, I suppose, a level of unconscious thoughts, right, or subconscious in this case. And I do think that it's very important that we work on, I suppose, look, it's a tough thing to say, because I do think that, like, my default right now when I'm saying this, I was like, I'm going to correct myself. If you really want to have something impactful on a subconscious level, I think work with the clinical psychologist, because there's irrational beliefs, as you know, that you can work on, and they'll reprogram your processes and figure out a solution for you. And I had a lot of irrational beliefs that I believed in myself through, I suppose, your childhood, your upbringing, like people have. I think a lot of people go through it, and you don't have that level of awareness where you don't understand the level of impact that it's having on your life, on your decision-making, on your confidence, on your self-esteem. So I think that this book is more of a challenging one. Would I recommend it for all? If you want to understand the concept of, psychology a little bit more, it can be something to consider, but it's more of a challenging read. I think it's probably more relatable to someone that's currently working with the psych, because you're going to be able to apply things and understand concepts a little bit better.
Okay. Now this book, this was the book that at 30, when I started true business, leaving my jobs, taking on a business on my own, the E-Myth. I mean, you've read the E-Myth Revisited. Is it like the original E-Myth? Because I've read the E-Myth. Amazing book.
Yeah, I agree. It's something that all business owners need to read, I believe. And it's slightly edited. I don't know what the difference off the top of my head of the original versus the revisited book. So it could be just in the modern age a little bit, probably a few edits, but I'm pretty sure it's quite consistent with the original. So yeah, if you're a business owner, you want to scale your business, you want to understand what it's what the possibilities of, especially if you're in a service-based industry, it's like, how do you scale?
Yeah.
Like if you're interested in creating a business and not just being a workhorse like me, you know, you want to scale and think about what it looks like to create a business that doesn't rely on you, right? Obviously, for me right now, the business, to keep it going, it relies on me because I've got to service and coach these ladies, right?
It does.
But you know, I do have a solution for that anyway, which I'm working on.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, the E-Myth Revisited it's a must do for anyone that is serious about scaling their business, or to understand, you know, different roles that one can play in a business model, and to hire people to help you to go to that next level, and understand that everything has a hierarchy. And if you understand that all businesses require a hierarchy, there's certain people that might be in a better position to, you know, do your job, you know, and there's certain definitions that I won't get into.
Yes.
But yeah, fantastic book.
That book, when I read it, did you feel like when you read it, they were talking about you? Because when I was reading it, I go, hang on, has someone been watching me? Because
Yeah.
I was like, you know, like my mindset and my belief set, I'm like, has someone been watching me? But I'll tell you what I found from that book. You know, there's 3 levels. There's entrepreneur, manager, and technician. And all 3 people can make money as long as you embrace the opportunity, the person you want to be. So if you're a good technician, you'll get paid good money to be a good technician. And if you're a good manager, managing people and structure, you're going to be a great paid manager. But to be a great entrepreneur is to hire the great people. So at the end of the day, it tells you that. But I'm going to tell you a funny story. When I was in IT, I was in the computer room, and this cleaning company called Bacs, B-A-C-S, I don't know if they're around anymore, used to come in and clean the computer room. Now, I don't want to sound racist. No, they weren't Indians. Indians weren't cleaning the computer room. But there was this guy, he's cleaning the computer room, and, you know, I could strike up a conversation, hence why I got a podcast. I said, oh, how long have you been working for this company? He goes, and he's cleaning the computer room. He goes, I mean, I do work in this company, but I own it. Okay, you own this company? He goes, yes. I said, why are you cleaning? He goes, I'm not a great CEO. I've got a CEO that runs this and I clean it. He goes, I just got to do something with it. So he owns it, hired a CEO, and what he's good at is cleaning. So he just wanted a job. Yeah, it was great. So I thought I'd share that with you, that he knew that. So maybe you, Troy, you're wanting to scale your business. Maybe look at myself too. Maybe we need to look at how we scale. It doesn't necessarily mean, it means we like, he's the director, you're the director, we're the directors. But maybe we do need CEOs, because maybe that's not what we're supposed to do, correct? I don't know. Maybe you are a good front-on girl trainer, but you need someone that hires staff that's going to bring staff for you. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah.
But
no, well, look, it's interesting because, I mean, I'll be transparent. So for me, from my perspective, I'm really good. I'm a good operator in terms of obviously servicing clients and being really creative. Where I lack, absolutely, is I suppose more so on the structural side of things, the hiring, the operations, the delegation.
Yeah.
That is the so, but moving forward, I've got a solution for all that. And I think also when it comes to scaling a business, it's like the E-Myth Revisited is perfect. It's like, what do you want your business to look like in 5-10 years time, and then reverse engineer that. I mean, that's probably the best thing. And I've done that recently. So yeah, I've got a solution for everything.
Well, the thing is, I remember the E-Myth saying that a million businesses open up, and in the first year, 90% of them fail. In the second year, 10% of those 90% fail. And in 5 years, you're very lucky if any of them are around anymore. And we all know why, if you really want to look at a model, look at your banks and look at your airlines. Why they are still around is some intricate bits. When they change their branding, like it used to be once Commonwealth Bank. There was Commonwealth Bank. and then it was Combank, and there was Combank, and it was Combank with a diamond, and there was Combank with a diamond. And then, so they know you need to refresh yourself, but not completely change everything that people aren't familiar. So what I mean is, while we're growing, we need to also not just scale, we need to intrigue, we need to brand accordingly, we need to look at colours and what's happening in the future. I think there's a lot there. And I think the ebook was talking about that.
Oh yeah, let's have logos for a long period of time and they'll come with a logo. You know, it happens, and it's part of growing and expansion. You need to have, you know, things looked at differently, and people that come on board that you hire have a different perspective, and you've got to trust the people that you bring on, and that's part of the process.
Yeah, 100%. The Republic, Plato, Greek philosopher. Socrates was his teacher. You read that book?
Yeah. That's a challenging read because it requires a lot of thought. So we spoke about before soaking in the information and really trying to understand the concept. So it's like, for someone that's wanting to start their book journey, I probably wouldn't start with that because it does require a lot of deep thought, and you've got to reread things quite often, and you've got to take some time to soak it in. I suppose that's probably a good book if you're going to read, you know, a page or two a day, and you read at that pace where you can soak it in and really figure things out and have that level of reflection. Because if you're just going to read through and speed run it, you're not going to be able to soak it in and implement it.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, we've gone through the books. I was going to bring up Warren Buffett, but I'll just say it, Warren Buffett, another book of yours. So, what's your favourite book? Give me one of your favourite books. If I haven't mentioned it, what is one you'd said, Steve, you haven't mentioned this one. This one I would say.
I think another book, another book that's probably really good, that would be my top, would be How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age. So,
oh yes,
there's an old school version, How to Win Friends and Influence People, but they've added in that sort of secondary edition with the digital age. So it's just a great way to figure out.
Oh, have they? That's David Carnegie. Is that right? Dale Carnegie?
Yeah.
Really? They've done a digital side to it, really? That you can, oh my God, tell me more.
It's good, yeah. So
that book killed me, man. That book humbles you.
Yeah, it did. I realized how many things that I needed to improve on at the time. And I was like, wow, I really need to make an effort here. So I think one good thing for people that don't want to read the book to take from this podcast is connect with compliments. You know, so if you see something nice on someone, just mention it and say, hey, listen, I like that. Kind of like what I did before with Chris. I said, the shirt.
He's happy as Larry. I've never seen him smile for a podcast.
You know, so it's just a nice thing to do. If you see something nice on someone, you want to give energy out to the universe. I think it's important. So straight away, why hide a compliment if you're thinking it? You know, just be authentic and open.
Oh wait, anything for me? Anything for me, Troy?
You know what I do like?
What do you do?
I do like your tattoos. As soon as you lifted your arm on that left side, I think it's the left side.
This one?
That the inside there. Yeah, that's look really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it's I'll tell you what it is. It's I'm the year of the rooster. So there's a rooster claw, and the rooster's holding an olive branch. I'm Greek, so it's got an olive branch, and inside the olives, it's got the Greek keys, the little symbols. Yeah. So yeah. So, and I'm a fire sign, so there's fire. Also,
that's beautiful.
Yeah, and then there's Socrates, which means I'm very smart and wise. No, I don't have Socrates. I'm just joking.
We can pretend it's in there.
Well, mate, I pretend everything. I tell people, like, sometimes when I was swimming with my son once, I said, you know what? I'm so happy I'm swimming with my second best friend. And he goes, who's your first? I said, myself. So anyway, so we had a bit of a...
Well, it needs to be. You know what? It's a funny thing to say, but it's also true, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. No one... Again, I know this is what's so good about this podcast and why I'm enjoying you so much. All right. A few of my pet hates. I'll just tell you what my pet hates are. All right. My ex-wife used to say to me, why do I need to tell you you're doing a good job? And I said to her this, you don't need to, but why wouldn't you? So I said,
Yeah.
I already tell myself I do a good job. So I don't need you to say it to me. But you tell me why you don't want to say it. Because if you do say I'm doing a good job, you're just elevating me on top of my own elevation. So this is what makes me laugh when people say, you don't need me to tell you you're doing a good job. No, fucking tell me I'm doing a good job. The more the merrier. And that's what I don't understand. Like, of course I'm saying it to myself, but do I have to say it to myself? How about? So for me, I mean, I know you commented about Chris's top, but let me tell you about Simon Sinek and a few other people. Oh yeah, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends, Influence People. Do you know what the hardest thing to do in an SMS with somebody is? To write good morning. You just want to go straight into the topic. But no, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Can I ask you, not can I, like, Chris knows this, but so does my son. My son goes, hey, Dad, can I borrow your car? I write back, good morning, Yanni, how are you? Yeah, you can have my car. Now, I'll tell you the truth. I can't be fucked writing good morning, how are you? But that's the discipline to show, to teach him or to teach me, this is how we communicate. And the How to Win Friends, Influence People book teaches you when the person opens the door at the concierge opens the door, you go to him, thank you so much for opening the door. Now, you don't fucking have to say that. He's getting paid for that. But the fact you do, you're a standout.
Yeah.
And that's
Absolutely.
what, and people forget to be standouts. And that's why I said to you, you don't need someone to tell you you're doing a good job. But if you see it, you're allowed to say it. It ain't going to hurt you. So that's one of my pet hates.
No, I agree. I think if someone does a good job, tell them. It's not going to do anything besides give them good energy and you feel good about it. I think a lot of people are scared to pay compliments, and I don't understand why. But if we connected with compliments more often, then would the world be a better place? They're going to pass it on. Imagine if everyone did that.
But that's why we are, look, the reason I'm not saying you're struggling. I don't want to use those words. I know how you mention the words, but what I'm saying to you is there is a truth, and some of it's lonely, and I always believe the truth prevails in silence. You don't have to mention. So the truth prevails in silence. It always will, in silence. If you've put someone down and they didn't hear it, you said it. It doesn't matter. If someone accuses you of something that you didn't do and they don't believe you, it doesn't matter. It's the truth. Let them believe you did something wrong, which you didn't. But talking about wrong, cheat meals in a contest prep is garbage. Why would you do that to yourself? It's a form of self-sabotage. Tell us more.
Yeah, that happens all the time. I think that there's a clear goal. You want to do your best. At the end of the day, not everyone can win. If you're entering a competition that has so many different competitors, you want to put yourself in the best possible chance to do well, right? You want to get into the best condition possible. A lot of the time, ladies will compete, dudes will compete. Their feedback after the competition is, you need to get leaner. So why even make that a discussion with the judges? Put yourself in a position where you're going to be succeeding, which means stay on point with your diet. If your goal is to get into the best shape possible, when you're sabotaging it and you're going outside of that goal and you're skipping your cardio, in this case, you're having a cheat meal, what for? That cheat meal's got nothing to do with your contest prep. It's got nothing to do with the goal. It's not going to help you achieve the outcome that you're looking for. So why go through that process? It's challenging enough to enter into a contest anyway. It's a challenge. It's hard. It's a grind. So why make it more harder on yourself by doing things that are off plan? You're not going to feel satisfied with that outcome. You're not going to be happy with it. So why do things that you're not going to be happy with? To me, it's a very simple thing. I know it's a challenging thing. It's not easy to stay on diet and stay disciplined and committed. And sometimes we fall off track. But if you do fall off track, remind yourself of why you're doing this. That's why we go back to the books. What is your why? What is the goal?
Oh, that's that's a book you read. What is your why? I saw that as well. So, because we're on food, can you tell me your idea with calories in, calories out? I mean, I want to add this. I haven't added this to a podcast. I want to add this to a podcast. Well, I have, but I want to add it with you. People talk about, it's all about the calories in, calories out. Now, as you know, if we speak about Trump, he's just hired one of his opposition, Kennedy. Kennedy's come over, and Kennedy's thing is about cleaning up the food in America, right? That's his principal purpose, to do a Royal Commission on food. And I believe the calories in, calories out, which has been going for a while now, is a number form. But what I do know is food to me is a certain fuel. Now, you've got a car, and when you go to the petrol station, they give you 3 nozzles, E10, 91 and 98. Now, all those 3 are going to be petrol in the same litre of tank to get you to the same destination. So then why do we have that choice if I can pick the cheap fuel that's still going to get me there? Because just like we don't have fuel like race cars, Formula One cars, certain fuel ignites certain things, makes you fire up, makes the motor maybe last longer. Well, I see the same concept in food, but I seem to be in these big arguments over fat loss, and I'm okay with fat loss, but isn't it better to eat healthy to lose weight than eat donuts to lose weight? Because we all lose weight. So what do you think about calories in, calories out?
I think eating clean is a no-brainer.
Yes, I think so too, but go ahead.
Digestion, first of all, is probably the primary concern.
Yes.
The digestibility of food sources. If you're going to eat donuts, can you technically get in shape eating donuts to a degree? But that's a lot of sugar. You're probably going to get an insulin dump that's going to create a response where you're going to crave sugar the following day.
Yes.
Do you really want to have that in your diet and to be having that craving? It's probably not sustainable in the long run, just from a hormonal point of view, because the more often you have sugar, the more often you crave it.
Yeah.
That's just a reality. I do think that people take something and run with it. And in this case, calories in versus calories out, they see a piece of string and they just decide to stretch it and really stretch the truth.
Yeah.
The reality is if you could get in shape eating donuts and ice cream, let's call it in contest condition for this context, everyone would do it. I would be eating ice cream right now to be shredded.
Yes.
But the reality is that that's not sustainable. It's not how the world works. If you want to have good digestion, you want to have good performance and energy, right? And good recovery, eating donuts is probably not the best thing, because there are micronutrients that are important. There's digestion that's important, sustainability of energy. I mean,
cognitive behavior.
Absolutely. You're probably going to have brain fog eating that. So I think every food has its place, but context is required. And if you want to get into the best shape possible as fast as possible, efficiency means something.
Yeah.
Eat a clean diet, stick to the clean diet. Try not to do it if it fits your macros, because it's just going to delay the process. It's going to encourage cravings. There's going to be energy fluctuations and possibly loose stools, like digestion problems. If I was going to incorporate a variety of food sources that, let's call it, are not clean, right? Like donuts or ice cream, my digestion's going to suffer. My energy is going to suffer. I mean, even carbonated drinks, right? Everyone likes to these days have those, C4, Bang, whatever it might be. I've done that too. But what happens is that 0 calories or very low calories, right? It impacts digestion. I get stomach bloat. I can see water retention. I have slip-offs in energy and performance. Is that going to help me with my training? No. Is that going to help me with my recovery? No. It creates a reliance on these things. So I think that people need to start thinking about what is optimal for performance. Is what I'm going to eat going to be beneficial for my performance? And if the answer is no, and if you're aware of that, you want to eat donuts, fine. But don't pretend like donuts are the way to go when it comes to getting in shape or being a part of the strategy that's supposed to be efficient.
I agree. And you couldn't have put it better. But like I said to you, petrol is petrol. I get it. I mean, why do they give us 3 choices? At the end of the day, one's got to be better than the other. One probably lets you drive a few kilometers. My mechanic told me, when he told me to put E98, he just told me, you're going to find out you're going to drive a few extra kilometers. I said, that was cool. And he also said to me, your engine's going to sustain better wear and tear. I thought that's great. And I think it's the same thing with the body itself. I mean, it's that sustainability, it's endurance. And I think this is the thing, the truth prevails in silence. You know the truth. We all know how we feel when you have a great meal to a bad meal. You know what I'm trying to say? So...
yeah, well, look, I mean, look, the whole concept of carb coma, where does that come from?
Yeah.
You know, you feel groggy and you feel like rubbish after you eat something, probably, let's call it on the naughty side. So, you know, you got to listen to your body. The body gives us signs all the time. And for people to argue anything but that, you know, they're trying to chase a narrative and maybe they're trying to sell something that is going to work to, you know, to get people on their side, but really it's not sustainable.
I think also, and I am not a nutritionist, but all I know is a lot of people, coaches, and probably are good physical coaches, but I think they just got to be careful about nutrition because there's a lot of, you know, bone, cell, ligament, brain, eye, skin, nails. You want to make sure it's just not about the physical side. There's a lot of things happening within that body.
Absolutely. And this is where even a contest prep is quite challenging, even as a natural competitor.
Yes.
You know, you're going to be deficient in a lot of these things. You know, you're putting your body through major stress. It's not the healthiest thing for your body. I mean, we're trying to achieve peak aesthetics, but everything else goes out the window sometimes.
It does. And that's why you want your girls to post-comp come out of it also in the best shape and grow into the best shape. So I can understand, you know, like I said, thank you for, you know, discussing that with me. It is a little bit of a challenge out there at the moment because, I mean, people just stick with the numbers and I'm a numbers guy, but, you know, what are those numbers? Training intensity. Are you really training hard enough? And when ladies, athletes ask to rate it out of 10, they say 10. And then I say, really? What does 10 look like? So tell me, what does 10 look like?
And 10, you know what probably 10 looks like? Tom Platz on a leg extension.
Oh my God, fucking Tom. Or Dorian Yates when he was training, because you mentioned Dorian Yates on another podcast, or your own, I think. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect examples of what a 10 would look like. So if you're falling short of Dorian Yates or Tom Platz intensity, you're probably not at a 10. And, you know, I think that some competitors need to humble themselves and say, look, there's things that I can do better. If you want to train like a savage and you want the best result possible, you know, you've got to really look at what you're doing and think about what you can do to improve. And if you're operating at a 10, you'll be growing like a weed. I can tell you that much.
100%. Like I said, I don't want to take up too much of time. I'm enjoying this, and I did write a lot about you. There was too much about you, and I couldn't. To be honest, I've actually thrown some things to the side because me and you will be here forever. But I just want, it's true, man. It's true. And I think a lot of, and you know, to be honest, Troy, I wanted to try and do your podcast justice because I feel there are going to be women, especially women wanting, or anybody really, anyone putting their head over the fence about you. I was trying to play homage to you. I really wanted to not fuck this up. My voice is fucked, which has upsetted me, but I didn't want to lose the opportunity. So I don't usually stress too much, but you did fucking stress me a bit. And I wanted to make sure I came in as A game as I could. I still came in as Steve, but like I said, I apologise if there's a lot here. But Philippa Ferreira wrote, and it was one of your pinned posts, that's why I chose it. She goes, I've been sitting on this post for weeks now because I wasn't sure what I wanted to say and how I want to say it. Troy, you are one of a kind. You have been one of the most monumental influences in my life this year. I would have not have achieved what I did without you. You turned up to her Queensland comp even though she was your only competitor. Attention to detail, knowledge, passion whatever the issue was, digestion, uni exams, unforeseen life experience, I could go on. How does that make you feel?
Emotional. I think yeah, I definitely I show up.
You do, bro.
You know, I show up and I give everything that I have.
I love it. That's why I've showed up for you, bro. I've showed up for you.
You absolutely did. I can tell you that I think that like the level of research that you put in, it's admirable.
Thank
you're
you.
super prepared, and it makes for interesting conversation as well, because I have gone on podcasts before where I'm like, there's some really surface level questions, and there's not a really deep level of communication, and you've gone and really, yeah, you've impressed me.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I want to impress everyone. That's the truth. It's a bit hard to impress Chris, but we're getting there. We'll get there with Chris. 2 times Australian Bikini Pro. I'm also funny, or I think I'm funny and maybe witty at times. Two times Australian Bikini Pro champion, Tani Sheenan. You wrote, trying to put into words the insane amount of effort you poured into the prep is a tough one, but your performance over the weekend was absolutely your best to date. I know that I asked a lot of you for this prep and you over-delivered. You're always ready to take on more, work to challenge yourself and to go to that extra mile. This is why you're the champion today. How does that make you feel?
You were trying to get me here. That's it's impactful because I say what I truly feel. You know, she's a superstar. You know, like both of these girls, what stands out to me about these 2 girls is they set big bodacious goal. We spoke about that before, like something that perhaps a lot of people don't want to go for. You know, when I started working with Tani, her goal was to be the Australian pro champion, right? And actually, sorry, to be clear, she wanted to improve her physique. To clarify, actually, no, it wasn't that. She wanted to improve her physique, and I said, why not do something crazy? I said, what do you really want? And we had that conversation, and she said, I want to be Australian pro champion. I said, that's what we do. That's what we're going to aim for. And it took a little while for her to believe in it. So it probably sounded silly. It didn't sound believable. And we had that conversation. I said, this is what we're going to get, and this is what you're going to earn. I said, you're going to earn this title. And then when she went through that process of winning the first title, that was awesome because she had to beat or defeat the reigning champion, which was no easy task. And then last year when she competed, you know, to make it 2 times, she annihilated the competition. It wasn't even close. And that was only possible because of her self-belief and her dedication. And, you know, just I suppose, like, again, the desire. She wanted it. And she did everything that it took and that I asked of her. So, and much like Philippa's an absolute weapon. I think you stumped me so much with the Philippa thing. I was like, I need to just be very careful. Otherwise I'm going to get too emotional. But Philippa was completely all in committed. I've never seen someone so dedicated. She's a special individual.
Look, she's, like I said, I mean, she told me I'm no good in bed because I don't do hip thrusts. So she is a special individual, that's for sure. She gave me some attitude. Mate. But the thing is, and because I can see you're emotional, it reminds me of, journalists, when they see the emotions, they go for it. So I try to go for it now. But anyway, the next one is it Shanae Kikac. Again, your pin post from IFBB Bikini Pro. But she's phenomenal, isn't she? From IFBB Bikini Pro to FMG Figure Pro. Congratulations for taking the show by storm and blowing everyone's mind. This is a good one. Thank you for continuing to challenge me as a coach. Your hard work and dedication makes it an absolute delight to work with you.
yeah, that yeah, it's just it's what I words for me aren't just words.
I can
You know,
see
they have
that.
meaning.
I can see that, bro. I can see that. Don't you worry.
So I believe in everything that I say. Like I write it because I mean it, not just saying it for
Look,
the sake of it.
yeah, you know, you're not easy to work out. This podcast has showed me a lot. Me and you are very similar. And like I said, you're actually very vulnerable but extremely strong. You have a stoic nature about you as well, which I can see. And but you're expressive. So you don't give away everything because you know you can only, holding some things close to you gives you an element of strength. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think there's certain things that are important to be vulnerable about, and I think that there's a space for communication. It depends on who you're talking to, of course. So,
of course, yes.
you know, right? Certain things. I mean, for me, I think if I'm going to be vulnerable, let's say with clinical psych staff, or I think it's giving people the idea that what's possible for change, and that can be a catalyst for something that they can do in their lives. So for people that are struggling, like that as an example, maybe this podcast, us talking about our experience, even just slightly, like maybe I could level up. Maybe there's something that I can do, and the listener might take action, and that's something that I think is important.
I think we've done very well. Like I said, we could have spoken about exercise, which we will, but we could speak about exercise and boiled rice and the general rule. But there's more to us, and I knew there was more to you. But I really, you know what I liked? I'm just trying to find it again, where you spoke about that girl. What was her name? The Australian champion, the one before Tani. When you said she came to you to do to have a better body, let's just call it, improve her physique, and you said to her, "What do you really want?" That's a fucking big call. And when she told you that, you said, "Well, that's what we're going for." Man, Troy, not many people say that. I'm just letting you know. That's pretty. Most people would have gone, "Yep, cool. Here's the invoice for that." You went, "What do we really want? What do we want here?" And I don't know. That's, to me, that's a standout.
Thank you.
Chris asked this question. I asked Chris, "What should I ask you?" And he said, "How did you start coaching? At what point did it move in the direction and predominantly women? Did you train, or have you trained men?" That's what I'm...
Yeah. So absolutely. So originally I was working with men predominantly. And then I had an opportunity to train my partner at the time. She's like, "Hey, listen, I want to do a bikini contest. Can you coach me?" I was like, "Sure." So I've got the knowledge. I was like, "Let's do that." So through her contest, she looked really damn impressive. She was quite a pretty girl.
Yep.
And had the total package, the condition, the posing, just the presentation, bikini, etc. So she did really well. And it was an eye opener where I think the standard was very low at the time. And she came and really just shined on stage, and she looked spectacular. And I think that was the catalyst for people to go, "Oh, Troy, let me just see." I'm like, I'm just helping my partner out here, right? So I think that's probably the catalyst in terms of going down the bikini road. And to be fair, and this is something that I've said before publicly, I actually didn't really care too much about the bikini category at all. I only really developed an interest because my partner was involved. I thought it was the most boring category of all time. I used to be I was a big bodybuilding fan, and I'm like, I go to shows, I'm, "Oh, bikini's on. When's the bodybuilding?" You know what I mean? Like, I literally had that in me where it's the last category that I want to see. I'd rather see the figure competitors, rather see women's physique. Bikini is the last category that I want to see. I don't enjoy it. But then my partner competed because she asked me to prep. I was like, "All right, I need to take this seriously." And then I researched it and I figured it out. I'm like, I created the competitiveness within myself to learn more about the category because I was invested in her journey. And then because I started learning about it, I'm like, oh, it's actually not as simple as I thought it was. It's actually a little bit more complicated. There's a lot of elements to it. And then as I started, becoming more aware and learning more about it, I then went down that road. But to answer the question a bit more is what I would recommend if you're a coach yourself is figure out what you really enjoy. If you really like any, you really like men's physique. Be a specialist. Market yourself as the guy in men's physique, the guy in bodybuilding, the guy in women's figure, if you like figure or bikini. And that's what I did. So when I actually started, I turned down a lot of men's coaching because like, no, I know my strategy. My goal is to be Australia's best bikini coach. I don't care about any other category. I'm going all in here because the more times that I prep female competitors, the more that I'm going to learn about peaking strategies and understanding posing. I'm not getting distracted by men's physique. I could prep it. I'm not getting distracted by men's bodybuilding. I could prep it, and I have before, but then I'm not a specialist. So instead of having, all these different clients in different categories, it's like, all right, who am I going to go for bikini coaching automatically? Even if an athlete doesn't choose me, I guarantee you that I'm part of the process of them thinking about maybe Troy,
Well, this is true. It's a bit like the RDLs. Eventually, you got it. First, when you did RDLs, you thought it was just your hammies, and then you got so bikini was like that. You
know what? I was worse than that, to be honest. I thought I was Ronnie Coleman doing an RDL. I'm loading the bar up. It was all lower back.
That's hilarious. So. We're just coming to the last few questions, then we're going to go over the body. I just want to ask, when did bodybuilding capture your attention? And also tell me again about that comp you did enter in, but I just want to know, when did bodybuilding capture your attention? Like, was that at a certain age? How old were you? What was it?
Yeah, so I just had a goal just to get in better shape, because I was a skinny, lanky kid, and I'm like, I just want to put on some muscle, so I did that. And I was at the gym. I might have been 20, 21 years old, and there was this older dude there who was just, really jacked, nice, big barrel chest, big sweeping tricep. And I always looked at him like, wow, this guy looks gross. And he was probably at the time middle 40s, had a beautiful physique. And I'd always ask him questions. At the time, there was no social media, there's no YouTube. So you go to the biggest guy, or at least the guy that's just really intense. And he had excellent form. He was very serious. He had a no-nonsense attitude. He didn't come in and talk to everybody. So his time was very valuable, and I looked up to him. And when he seen that I was training really intense, I suppose, because I had the same mentality, I didn't go to the gym to socialize. Not that I wasn't. Actually, to be fair, back then I probably wasn't so polite. I was going in there thinking I'm going to tear the place up. So I didn't mean to be rude or anything, but I probably was unintentionally. And I'm just so focused on what I was doing. But I think because he's seen that I was serious, he took a liking to me, and he paid attention and gave me advice along the way. And he eventually, when I started developing, he said, why don't you consider entering a bodybuilding contest? And I said, what's that? I'm completely ignorant. I didn't have any idea. And he's like, oh, there's things you can do. This is what I've competed. And he showed me like photos on his phone of him competing. I thought, wow, this guy's amazing, right? Because not only does he look good in the off season, which I didn't understand the concept at the time, but he looked grouse in photos and in his prep and on stage, and he's won his shows. And he was the catalyst. And I thought, I'm going to go check out a contest. He was the one. So we talked about connecting with compliments or just speaking your mind. He thought, hey, this kid's got potential. Let me just give him a word. And through that was a catalyst for me to go, I'm going to go check out the next contest or research what federations there were. And my first ever contest that I went to was an A&B Victorian show. So went to that. And I remember watching the guys on stage thinking, I can beat that. They're not in the best condition. This is what it's like. And then that fueled me. And that created that, like, almost, to be fair, probably a little bit of toxicity where it was fueled on jealousy. Like, how does this guy do? Like, I know I'm better than that. So there was an element of that, which is a toxic way to look at things, to be fair. But I was also like, I'm inspired to take action because I had that competitiveness where I'm like, I can be the standard. This is not the standard. So did that. And I started taking an interest in bodybuilding after that A&B show. Then I started researching IFBB, became completely obsessed with, the Olympians like Dennis Wolf, Kai Green. Big fan of Dennis Wolf. And Phil Heath I didn't like so much because when he just started winning, I was just like, sometimes you don't respect the champion when they're on top. And that was me. And then eventually when he lost, I was like, no, how can you lose now? I like you. What are you doing? And then you want him to come back and win 8 titles. So yeah, he only won 7. But it all stems from a compliment in the gym. How amazing is that?
Yeah. That's very old school, because bodybuilders, we all know, you know yourself, when a kid comes up to you in the gym, you can tell by their eyes, you can tell by their nervousness, and they want to know. So you can always tell. But do you think, Troy, as well, you are, the reason you coach and don't compete anymore is that you know there's people like Ronaldo out there, Messi out there, Beckham out there, and for you, you seem to be able to get the best out of somebody and actually create a team around them. And also, just like Beckham, who's bought the Miami, whatever they're called in America, the fact is, you're just not just an athlete. You're predominantly a mentor, possibly, like you said, the coach, a business owner. I think your forte is more like not exactly standing on the stage, but behind that athlete to get their best. Is that, would I describe you well?
Yeah, I think because I competed once in that one season.
Yes,
and
of
then
course.
after that it was one and done. And for me, I suppose I didn't have a clear goal to want to compete any further. There wasn't something that I wanted to do after that, because I competed in the natural federation, and then, going down that road to be, a really next level bodybuilder. Although I admired, like, Kai Green and all these athletes, I never wanted to be like that. But I loved it. So for me, I was like a massive fanboy. I learned everything about pro shows and who was winning. And, I used to have chats with Tony Doherty in the office when I was working with him. The funnest chats about competitions and knowing all the competitors and who's winning what shot. We'll talk about side chest, side tricep, who's winning the back shot. When it's obviously shows a one from the back. That's the old saying. So went through all that, but yeah, had no desire to compete in the IFBB. And I think that's where I left it. And I was definitely grew up with a competitive spirit where I needed an outlet, I suppose, to be able to do that in some form, and coaching was my way to do it. And because I suppose I have a level of certainty with what I do, it gives a level of certainty to the athletes that I work with, where they then get that benefit because they might be talented, right? They might be more talented than me. They might be more genetically gifted than me.
That's what I mean, yeah.
But they don't have the certainty. So we combine their gifts with my gifts, and then we've got something that we've potentially something special.
Well, when I had my shop, I used to say to my chef, I said, I can cook this food. I can cook it. I can make it. But I said, you make it better. So I have the facility for you to come in and do your best. And that's why we work together. I said, you can go get your own business, but you don't. But I need the best chef, and I think you're it. So you're the better cook here than me. So, but I'm hiring you to be the best chef. And I'm encouraging you. So when I tell you to do something a little bit quicker, or try a new dish, or explore something, don't get offended. Just know, I think you can do it. So,
yeah.
So, tell us about Team Destroy. How can I join Team Destroy, or do I have to wear a bikini?
Oh, how can you join Team Destroy?
Yeah.
So you broke up there a little bit.
Sorry.
Like my Zoom's a bit odd. So how can you join Team Destroy?
Oh, well, I can't join Team Destroy. Just tell us about Team Destroy.
I mean, look, you could like these days where society's going, it's probably going to be allowed.
I could, yes.
They've got like men's wellness athletes now. You know that, right?
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Look, hopefully through this conversation, it doesn't pop up on your algorithm, because I don't wish that for you. But to join Team Destroy, follow me on Instagram, send me a DM, and we can have a conversation about your goals. All that I'd ask is just know what you want. You go, this is what I want to achieve. I want to build glutes. I want to get in better shape. And let's have a conversation about it. And yeah, best thing to do is send me a DM, or you can go on the website.
All right. Make sure all the girls out there that are listening to this podcast, and there'll be many, I know it. Okay. Last, you told me about growing up. You told me about Dubai. Great. So just one more thing, and then we go over the body. and you plug yourself. Chris was checking out your website, and we noticed you do lifestyle coaching, off-season coaching, and obviously contest prep. So please tell us what this lifestyle coaching is and off-season coaching.
So essentially what the difference is between off-season and lifestyle is essentially you've got the concept of competing in your mind. So if you're off-season, that means that you have the intention to compete. You might want to compete in ICN, you might want to compete in AMB, FMG, IFBB, whatever the federation is. There's an intention at some point in time to compete, and the off-season is designed for you to put on the size, to to build the metabolism, to work on your posing, to prepare you to enter into a contest prep. And having an off-season is very important with the coach, because if you want to win a show, you don't want to just enter into a show and do a contest prep. You want to prepare for it in the off-season and make sure you're building nice top to bottom balance and to build up that confidence. And then to make sure, if your goal is to win, you're putting yourself in a position to put on that top to bottom balance, that symmetry, that proportion, that size that's required to put you in that position. That's what the off-season for. Lifestyle coaching just means that you want to improve your physique. It might be working on body composition, lowering body fat. You have no intention to compete. So the actual style of coaching isn't much different. It just means that you've got a different goal. Lifestyles for the everyday person who wants to be their best selves. They might want a level of fitness or level of condition, level of body fat, and you work towards that goal. Off-season or contest prep is a little bit more specific towards, entering into a show at some later date.
I like that. Okay. How's the Bikini podcast going?
Good. I actually need to do more podcasts like you. You're a machine. You're going to take over. So I do enjoy it. So a lot of the time I do podcast wrap-ups of the shows that go on and focus on female categories, which is good. But I enjoy it. Something that I definitely thought of creating initially. I was like, I need to create something for females out there, because much like my attitude when I first discovered bikini with my partner, I was like, bikini, like no one cares about it. So I definitely saw that as an opportunity to really promote bikini as a category. And right now it's probably one of, if not the most popular categories now. But beforehand, I suppose the Australian coverage on women's shows, or bikini specifically, it wasn't there. So that's what the intention was for, to really highlight, some of these amateur athletes and professional athletes in Australia.
Do you want me to give you a tip?
Yes.
All right. Firstly, you have to pick, is it a weekly podcast, a monthly podcast, a fortnightly podcast? You've got to pick it. And then you've got to pick the day you do it, so it's not compromised. And the hour you do it. So if it's every second Tuesday, let's just say, and it's at 6 p.m, you document that, and you book your guests in. So you know who's coming every second Tuesday. And you write a script, but you allow the script to be home base, meaning you can still segue like we have, but you need to be able to uniform it in case, someone that's boring as fuck ain't talking much and he's saying yes or no very quickly. Yes, no, no, yes. And you go, oh, fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what
There's a few of those ones.
Yeah, so what you need is a designated date and time, or designated day and time, and a script. And you treat it with respect. And then you've got a podcast that will go forever. You know what I mean?
You know what? I'm absolutely going to do that. So thank you for that. It's something that, I haven't taken it seriously lately, so I need to do that. So I appreciate that, because it's perfect. Because what you've done as well is you've given me an idea, not just in what you've just said, but in how you operate. And I like what you do here. So it's like lessons from this I'm going to implement. So I'll let you know how it goes.
Thank you. Just put out the good word. Like I said, tell them I'm doing a good job. That makes two of us. I don't have to say it for myself. So what's next for Troy? What can we look forward to see and find out about you? What's happening next? Anything exciting? Anything cat out of the bags? Anything you'd like to, create a little teaser?
I suppose interesting stuff. I mean, I've got some personal goals, but nothing that I suppose some of them are materialistic, which aren't really that important.
Okay.
I would say that Muay Thai, I train Muay Thai. So probably I've got to debate it whether it's a good idea or not, but more than likely I'll be training for a fight. So I train 4 to 5 times a week at the moment. And I've been keeping that on the down low. Like, a few people know that I do it, but I haven't posted anything on social media in terms of videos or reels, which I might start doing now. But that's going to be something that I'd consider in the future for sure, because I like to challenge myself and to do something different. So that's kind of cool. I'm currently working on an app, and that will be more than likely released in April next year. Interesting quick story about that is that the original app company that I was using went into liquidation. And it was a bit of a challenge, because you invest a decent amount of money, like 6 figures, and they go into liquidation. They keep the source code. Oh, no. You can imagine. Yeah. So that's what happened. But I'm actually, a lot of people are like, oh my God, like, I don't tell the full story about it, but everything's a lesson. So for me, we talked about ready to receive information. I wasn't ready to execute the vision, right? And going through that process, I took a lot of things for granted, and I am now taking it very seriously. And I respect the process, and I respect the money and the investment that I'm putting into it a lot more now. I wasn't ready to do that properly. So now, going through that experience and having, not just the investment in money, but also the time investment and the delay, I respect my time a lot more now, and I respect the money that I invest now in this project that I'm working on. So, and I also have expanded on the original concept. The concept now has changed, and I'm very grateful for that. So even though people are like, wow, you lost it. So again, what is the focus? Is the focus that I lost money, that I lost time, or is the focus now on, no, we've actually had more time to perfect the vision, and I know clearly and with 100% certainty the direction of the app, and I'm grateful for the direction that we're in, and the company that I'm working with, I found the right fit.
It's funny because obviously, before we started the podcast, I did a little disclaimer to you. You're the third or second person in the podcast. We're launching podcast 66 this week. So what I'm saying, I realize when these influencers take your content and defame it, like they lie and they bring in the wrong story and narratives, and it creates a bit of a problem. Me and Chris had to polish up our act. And also it told me we're not ready for 1 million followers yet. We will be, but we need to be prepared. We need to be doing it now before we have 1 million followers. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I suppose it goes back to what you spoke about before with the E-myth, right? So what does the business look like in X amount of time? Or what does 1 million followers look like for you?
Yeah, that's right.
And then going back and going, damn, you know what? We didn't prepare for that. And that's part of the process though. We learn things along the way. We have these big, audacious goals. And sometimes it's a tough lesson, and sometimes it's a much needed lesson. And I think that, you clearly have expanded what you're doing, and you might have changed a few different things, and, from an operational point of view. And, the way that also you've communicated in this podcast is so much better than some of the original podcasts that I watched. I'm like,
100%.
You're getting so much better. So, and that only can come from reflection and review of performance.
Oh, let me tell you, you're not wrong. It's been a challenge.
Hi, I'm Yvonne from Rock Creek. This is our hemp protein chocolate brownie mix. Tastes sensational. Please, you can buy yours online at rockcreek.com.au, and don't forget to use your Muscle Talks 10 coupon code for a 10% discount.
Okay. Do you mind if we go over the body quickly? So, because at the end of the podcast we go over the body, you could tell me you don't, not just you, it is about you. It's not just training people, but I'm going to go over the body. You say we train it, I don't train it. This is how many sets and reps. This is the exercise I recommend. So give you an example, like bicep, I might say preacher curls, 3 sets of 10. That's what I might say for biceps. So traps, do we train traps?
So is this for me specifically, or just for people in general?
You tell me. No, for you. We want to know what you do with these exercises. Okay, you. Traps. Do you trade traps?
No traps.
Okay. Delts, side delts.
Yes, very important. Probably, I would say very low volume, six to 7 sets per week.
Sets, how many reps?
Anywhere from 10 to 20. So sometimes I like to do high reps.
Okay. Rear delts.
Yeah, I would say probably 6 to 10, a little bit more. I think it's important for posture. So for me, bodybuilding isn't the primary focus. It's more about sport-specific performance. And because I'm doing a lot more Muay Thai, it's a lot of front delt work. So I need to balance it out with side and rear delts.
If I can ask you, your side delts, what's an exercise, a go-to exercise?
I mix it up. So machine laterals are very good for sure, because you can get that real peak contraction at the top. I'm a big fan of that time under tension. For me, I also like to do single arm dumbbell laterals, and I'll start with my weaker side just for symmetry purposes. Okay. But if we're going bodybuilding, something that's really good to change up is going on an incline. So doing incline dumbbell laterals, but with your back on the pad. So not doing it in the reverse. Some people get the terminology wrong. So sitting as if you're going to do an incline chest press, but incline dumbbell lateral, and you allow the dumbbell to hang and stretch in the bottom for a second. So you're stretching out the side delt. A lot of the time, the delt's not stretched out. It's very hard to do that. But in an incline, if you let the dumbbell hang, you can feel it stretching on the side delt. So that's probably a real good exercise.
And what about for rear delts? What would be the exercise for rear delt?
I like reverse pec deck for sure. I'd like a face pull that's manipulated where you're pulling with a shorter range of motion. So I'm not pulling all the way through to include the trap activation. So I'm flaring I'm rounding my posture. My shoulders are forward and my elbows are flared, and I'm pulling out wide with a limited range of motion. I'm not pulling all the way through, because if you pull all the way through, common mistake, you're going to get a lot of trap activation. I want to eliminate as much traps as possible.
Okay, and then front delts. What would you do for front? I mean, you explained, I think,
Yeah. Now I'm not even doing... I think I would do for front delts is push-ups, because of the Muay Thai training, I'm always like hitting pads and bags. So I get a lot of front delt activation. So I'll do push-ups just as a burner for endurance, just for blood flow.
Okay. What about back? The laterals. What's an exercise?
Yeah. I mean, right now I don't train back at all, but I would say for mind to muscle connection, if we're going to stick with it, go to a row, any type of one arm row, whether it's a single arm, low row, or a high row. I think rowing is better than pull downs, because a pull down it's very easy to stuff up a pull down and pull through your shoulders, your traps. Whereas a row, if you've got good posture, it's so much easier to get a mind to muscle connection. So for anyone struggling with back development or activation, master the row and then go to pull downs, because if you can't master a row, the pull down's not going to be as effective.
Okay. What about chest?
Yes, we're going incline. So anything incline, I like pec decks, but up high to get that upper chest activation. Incline dumbbell press, incline Smith, incline machine. I think it's all really important. And for me, I do a lot of body weight stuff as well. So I'll do a lot of dips. So dips, anything high reps where I can burn out my chest and front delt. So I'm now training not just for aesthetics, but also endurance. So I like to do high rep stuff.
Okay. What about abs?
Planking. Planking's number one. I think that if you are able to plank, it's going to solve a lot of lower back problems. If you've got a weak lower back, it's probably from a lack of planking, maybe, right? So it's something to consider, is to strengthen your core through that. Outside of planking being number one, I think leg raises, like on a Roman chair, are underrated. If it's a knee raise, do a knee raise. If you can't do it, that's fine. But if you can do a leg raise, if you can build up to that, it's going to really hit the lower ab.
I like that. Planking hasn't been spoken about. I've heard it, but it hasn't been spoken about. What about?
Oh, it's underrated.
There, it's bicep.
I don't train arms right now, because I do a lot of, because it's very explosive with my movements. If I train too much arms, it just stuffs up the tendon. I feel like I get a bit of pain in the bicep.
What about quads?
Squads, I do very low volume now, so I'll throw in a leg press and a Bulgarian split squat, maybe some belt squats, like I said, but they're a belt squat. I'm doing it more so for glute specifics. Like I'm trying to really get the glute happening. Obviously, there's going to be quad activation, but if I was going to be bodybuilding, I'd go straight to a hack squat or a pendulum. I think that's the best thing for quad activation. But again, my training's changed because of the Muay Thai.
What about hamstring?
Leg curl is the master. Just a lying leg curl. I feel like you can stretch out your outer hamstring sweep, doing a lying leg curl, toes pointed out.
Very old school.
Yeah. It's Tom Platz. Watch him do a leg curl. You know, it goes to absolute insanity failure. And I mean, that to me is the standard if you want to bodybuild. Probably some people might think it's excessive these days, but if you're going to be, you know, managing your volume, or you're going to be a warrior wart, don't watch Tom Platz. He's not going to be your guy. I like the intensity. You know, it's the mindset as well. So I would rather train slightly too hard with too much volume and damage the central nervous system and have that mentality to be all in committed than to leave something in the tank.
Calves.
Ooh, my calves are horrible. So I don't want to get advice from me. But look, standing calf raises are good to go. I think a full range of motion is important. I think my calves started responding when I really focused on a stretch on the bottom, pause on the bottom.
Yes, might have responded too.
Yep, get that deep stretch and then peak contraction at the top. There is a study up that's been recently put out there that suggests that the stretch is the most important, and actually not going up all the way is not needed. But the stretch element, that second pause on the bottom that, you know, you've also done, is the way to go.
Jay Cutler, which I got that advice from, stretching it out, but he also said he trains that as a first exercise. He doesn't leave it for the end. So
yeah,
he changed it around, which I found has worked. Look, just so I sound a bit smart, what about tibialis? Do you train a tibialis?
You know what? That's one thing that I need to do. I used to, when I was bodybuilding, used to throw it in every now and then, and I'd go on a lying leg curl and do the lying leg curl in reverse.
But you need it for Muay Thai. You probably need to train tibialis.
Yeah, I definitely think it's something. I was thinking about that the other day, and I'm like, I need to start getting it in because
for your kicks, you need a strong shin. I think you need to do it, man, for what you're doing.
It's interesting because it's hard because it's managing volume, because when you're kicking the bag a lot, you can feel it. Like if you do 5 days in a row and you're really launching it, you can feel the damage on your shin, and you got to wait for it to be conditioned. So it's fun and exciting. It's different. But even calf work, like if I add in calves, like let's say on day 3, it's not going to be a good idea because I'm always on my toes. But I think my calves are growing just from being on my toes all the time.
Oh, well, mine too. Yeah, I believe so. What about glutes? What's your glute go-to?
Glutes, you know what? That we talk about explosive power. Glute training is very important for Muay Thai. And if you're doing any type of sports, you need glute training.
True. I think it's true.
It develops so much power in punches, and a lot of sprinters do a lot of glute specific work. So for me, hip thrusts, I like. I'm too lazy these days to do a glute bridge, but I think that they're quite effective. It's just the setups are pain. So I do the easy setups. I actually do machine hip thrusts. I just go straight in the machine. I don't sort of barbell. I find that the range of motion is good for me in terms of, because I'm decently tall, so my levers work well on the machine hip thrust. It's good to go, and it's just easy to load the plates up. I like a belt squat, as I mentioned. I like abduction and even Bulgarian split squat. So it's really important, not just for an athlete, but for, in this case, you know, sport-specific performance. You need to have strong glute med for stabilization of the hip, and that's what the glute med's for. It stabilizes the hip. So if you develop that, it's going to help also with your lower back pain, and it's also going to help with explosiveness. Hip mobility is very important in Muay Thai. So yeah, training the glute med is a no-brainer for sports performance and also aesthetics.
I think I've neglected that completely. So I think I need to work on that. And so, yeah. Well, can you tell us where we can find you? How can everyone find Troy the Destroyer?
You can find me on Instagram. Best way to get in contact with me is at Troy J Thornton. So you can send me a DM if you've got any questions regarding this podcast, you want to expand on anything, and if it's a book idea, if it's talking about the psychologist, talking about your training, you want some tips, just send me a message, send me a DM, and I'll get back to you, and we can have a conversation.
Well, what can I say, Troy? It's been my absolute pleasure. Sorry about my voice, but I sound like Jordan Peterson, and I tried to keep the explanations short, but I just want to say thank you. Honestly, I've really enjoyed this podcast.
I've really enjoyed it as well. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate your time and for the invite.
Likewise, brother. Likewise.